if they win 3 of those, if they split their 3, they'll wind up with more home wins than the Cardinals. The Cubs have 3 home against the Reds. If they take 2 of 3 next weekend, they'll wind up with more home wins than the Cardinals. The Cardinals will probably wind up 9th in the National League in home wins. If you don't dominate at home, it's really hard to be great.
It is, and if you don't hit, it's really hard to be great as well. So, like, we can go down. There's a million different things that we can react to with this team for the 2024 season. Whether you want to look at the runners in scoring position number, the rotation being better, but still not being good. Overall, you look at just some of the missed opportunities that they had starting out the year 15 and 24. We can look back at any individual series. I always point back, Randy, to the Red series in the second half. It's like that was the moment we knew it was over for them. They might not have, but we all internally knew that was the case. Really, we should have known at 15 and 24. Like, you get off to that kind of a start, and when we didn't know this at the time, but we do now. Milwaukee's a good team, and if you were going to have a legitimately good team coming out of your division, 15 and 24 was probably going to be the death knell of the season, and it ultimately became that.
And if we're going to look at the overall highlights from this season, when we decompress and look at it in November, we're going to talk about Mason Wynn, who had the game-winning RBI yesterday. Granted, it was a walk, and then we're going to talk about Ryan Helsley. Those are going to be, if we're going to pick top 3 highlights, those are definitely 2 of them, right?
Helsley, Wynn. I think you can make a case now that we're seeing the way that he's playing towards the end of the season that Brendan Donovan would maybe be one of those. And the reason why I would say that, Randy, is just because, like, we've seen now, okay, capable left fielder, capable second baseman, is going to continue to be productive. Randy, how many times have we talked about a guy coming in, having a really good rookie season, and then starts to fall off a cliff, right? Or a guy that just can't stay healthy. Dylan Carlson was that. Lars Nootbaar appears to be that. Those aren't the case for Brendan Donovan. He's just a super productive, good big league player. Now, is he miscast a bit as being like the 3rd best player on your roster? Yes. He shouldn't be that. He shouldn't be asked to be that. But he's a guy that you can build around. So I would throw him into the mix as a positive for this team as well.
And he, to me, has established himself as a good on-base guy. If you can start your lineup with Wynn and Donovan, I think you're off to a good start. Yeah. But the key is getting any reasonable production over the course of 6 months out of your 3rd and 4th hitters, which the Cardinals haven't gotten consistently out of their guys all year long. It's interesting. The Cardinals will be off today, and then they'll wrap up with 3 in Colorado and 3 in San Francisco. And floating around the ballpark over the course of this last homestand, you sure get the vibe that when the Cardinals come home a week from today, that changes are afoot.
Okay, so did you hear John Mozeliak's appearance yesterday on KMOX?
I did not. I missed it.
Okay. He said at one point that it's going to be an interesting offseason, and he's talking about how the changes that are going to be made, and he didn't want to really speculate on his own future. He was asked specifically about that and essentially said, like, hey, that's a conversation that we'll have later on. What do you think is coming? Because last year I talked myself, Randy, into, man, sweeping changes are coming. Maybe this is the year that they learn from all of their mistakes. They're going to go out and really invest in their team, and they made some changes. They bring in Sonny Gray, and I think that was a really good move at the time. But I thought maybe that would come with another front-end starter, and ultimately it came with 2 guys that are going to eat innings for you. So when you look this offseason, you've now missed the postseason 3 consecutive seasons. That's not something that the Cardinals are used to. What does that come with? That has to be coupled with something else.
Well, I can go a couple of different directions here, specifically with Mo. If Mo isn't saying, I'm going to be back, that tells me, because this is a guy that has told people he's tired. He has told people that the grind is very difficult, and we know that he's not going to get let go. He's not going to get fired. So if John Mozeliak would be reassigned or reassign himself within the organization, wouldn't surprise me one bit. I will be a little bit surprised if Oli Marmol is not back. I think that's probably something that's coming. And then for another Pobo or Mo, whomever it might be, I'm pretty convinced that the Cardinals are looking at a $40 to $50 million slash in their payroll.
Yeah.
And that would include, obviously, a pay cut for Paul Goldschmidt. That would include probably Lance Lynn not being back. You already got rid of Gallegos, so he's gone. Maybe moving some other contracts around. Matt Carpenter's not going to be here, but he only made $740,000 this year. Brandon Crawford made $2 million, though, so that's another one. So I would say that they'll probably, because of the attendance this year, and their biggest BK, as you know, their biggest revenue generator is local TV revenue, which is a mystery right now with Bally. So they don't know. So to protect themselves, I'm guessing that we're probably going to see that payroll drop 40 to 50 million.
And they're lucky right now, given the circumstances, that they have some young guys that you can build around. Like, they have had players. Now, whether the Cardinals fans believe in them or not, they're there at least. You have the names that you can lean on. Donovan, Nootbaar, Walker, Herrera, Baker, Wynn, Sajasi. Like, you've got guys. You look at what the rotation could be. You've got a Palante that can fill into that spot that will be left by Lance Lynn. I'll be curious to see what that means for guys like Miles Michaelis. Like, do the Cardinals just say, you know what, we'll eat $10 million to get off of 8? With somebody like Steven Matz, we'll eat $6 million to save the 5. And no, we might not get anything in return, but the money savings for us is what's worth it. The roster spot to get a young guy into that spot is going to be worth it for us. Those are the things that I find really interesting. But Randy, if you're going to slash that kind of money, and I don't necessarily blame them for doing so. I hate when teams cry poor, but I do see the uncertainty. I understand that. How do you improve this squad? Well, that's where I think it gets really difficult to sell if you're the Cardinals. It's okay, you're making all of these changes. You've got this young talent the Cardinals fans can latch onto, but how do I convince myself that this team is going to be better next year?
The thing you have to do, because I'm like you, I think that they have talent that needs to be molded and polished. And I think they need to maximize the talent.
Agreed.
And the key guy, the whole key to the whole thing is Jordan Walker, because they aren't going out and signing Soto, right? So what they need to do is have Jordan Walker turn into a superstar. And changes in the coaching staff wouldn't surprise me either. But that's one thing you need to do. And then at some point, and they've been reluctant to go with young pitching. And sometimes, a lot of times, it hasn't worked. Well, why hasn't it worked with a guy like Oviedo or Dakota Hudson or whomever? Maybe it's talent, or maybe it's the way you're developing him. But McGreevy is going to get another opportunity here. I would guess we'll see Graceffo. I wouldn't be surprised if by May of next year, Quinn Matthews is right there. You have a 1-2 of Gray and Matthews.
And I wonder if you see Tink Hence get some opportunity as out of the bullpen next year, because it's becoming clear the grind of the season might be a lot for him. He has not built up the innings to any reasonable degree, and it would be a disappointing outcome if he becomes a reliever for you. But hey, man, if you've got a high leverage arm that's coming out of your system, those guys are really hard to find. Maybe Ryan Helsley is not back next season as well. We'll see what happens with him. He's one of the guys that you obviously mentioned has been a highlight for the year. He needs one more save to tie Trevor Rosenthal for most saves in any individual season by a Cardinal. He's going to make some real money this offseason, man. And bringing back a guy like that for this team when you need to continue to add to your talent level, I don't know that that's going to be where they want to spend their money either. They've got some huge decisions this offseason, Randy, and we don't know who's making them.
And I haven't seen enough of Tink Hence to know, but I've been told within the organization, I'm sure you've heard the same thing. You just said it. He profiles as a relief pitcher now.
Essentially.
So why not, if you have a program, have Tink Hence pitch in leverage situations, have him pitch the 8th and 9th next year with the knowledge that Ryan Helsley's leaving as a free agent. So you have a guy ready to plug in when your other guy leaves as a free agent. I think that would be the smart move on the part of the Cardinals.
I think it probably would be as well. I think you still try it. Keep trying this thing as a starter, and once it fails, if it fails next year again, then you make the switch, because you can always make that transition to the bullpen. We've seen it with even Steven Matz at the big league level, right? In season, he just switches over, becomes a reliever for you. It's harder to get stretched out than it is to just throw in those 1 or 2 inning bursts. So I think that's going to be there for him when the time is right. I would still bring him back as a starter next year. Just let him fail one more time. See if, hey, are there some things in the offseason that we can do to maybe see if this clicks? If it doesn't, then you go that route.
Now, one other question for you about Helsley, because we just talked about the Cardinals slashing payroll. But if Helsley, if it would be 4 years and $60 million for Ryan Helsley, do you go there?
Man,
that would make him like the 4th or 5th highest paid closer in the game.
So I think the answer to that is twofold, Randy, and it's not a straight, direct answer to you. But like for me, just in a vacuum, yes, I'm making that deal because I think it's a good signing by the Cardinals. But it's not that simple. One, do I think that the Cardinals are going to be really good in the next 2 or 3 years? Because if the answer is no, then I probably need to trade him this offseason. And that's the second part to this is, what am I getting in return for Ryan Helsley this offseason? What can I get in a package? If I sent Ryan Helsley plus Sajasi, Herrera, Gorman, somebody else, and then maybe even a Tink Hence, right? If you wanted to throw him in there, if another organization really believes in him, or a Graceffo, whatever it might be, what can I get for Ryan Helsley this offseason? Like, if I offered him to the Blue Jays and I threw all of that other stuff in there, are they making Vlad Guerrero available this offseason? Is that something that's out there? And if the answer is no, okay, what else can be shaken available by him? He's a really good trade chip, man. That is an excellent reliever that has proven a contender would want him on the roster. What can I get for him? Those are the two. That's the opportunity cost that exists this offseason beyond just, can I sign him to this kind of a deal?
And I know this is something that the Cardinals are reticent to do, but it's been brought up. I think, Matthew, you brought it up. What if you could attach the departure of Miles Michaelis to trading Ryan Helsley?
I'm not doing that. See, the money to me is less important. Like, the Cardinals can get off of Miles Michaelis' contract. He, while not a great starter at this point, look at the starters that the Cardinals just paid last offseason, $11 million. You're telling me nobody would take on Miles Michaelis for $8 million next year?
That's what it'd have to be. You'd have to give $12 million.
And I think you could make that work. But I'm not taking less in return for Ryan Helsley to get off money from my books. You can find other ways to move your money. Ryan Helsley's the thing that I have to trade for the best package possible. That would be like the Nationals when they, and now it's different. Juan Soto is not Ryan Helsley, but that would have been like the Nationals attaching the Patrick Corbin contract to the Juan Soto deal in a trade. It just didn't make sense. Get the most return possible and make it work that way.
And I think watching what they do in that regard with Miles Michaelis is a pretty interesting case study. That'll tell us where they are. Are we trying to win, or are we all about finances?
Gibson
right now?
will be as well, because Gibson, there's no reason not to bring him back.
Yeah. And I think that whether it's picking up the option or him coming back for less money, I think Gibby is going to be back, and that might be a thing that's announced next Monday. I would not be surprised. City knocks off San Jose 2-1 over the weekend. Blues preseason hockey is underway. A 5-3 loss to the Utah Hockey Club last night after they opened their preseason against Dallas and scored a couple of goals the night before. So the Blues are rocking and rolling, and we are rocking and rolling on this edition of the Opening Drive. BK in for Brooke. Matthew is here, and we got 3 things we loved from the weekend coming up on 101 ESPN. Time for 3 things we loved about the weekend here on the opening drive.
Number 3.
BK, you heard about it from Alex over the course of the last couple of weeks. The Lindenwood Mafia got back together at Lindenwood on Saturday for their game against St. Thomas of Minnesota. And we had Bob Ramsey and we had Greg Amsinger in town calling a quarter of the game. Jim Hewer, David Amilati from Channel 4, Glenn Cerny, the former general manager. We had a great time over at Lindenwood. It was a lot of fun, and it was great to reconnect with a lot of people that are from the history of KCLC at Lindenwood University. They've turned out a few sportscasters, so it was fun to get guys back together. Ferrario was supposed to be there. His picture was on everything. He didn't make it.
Alex, along with the rest of our station, got sick over the weekend.
Okay, that'll do it.
Alex came in on Friday and was like, man, my wife, my kids, they're all sick at home. And I was like, oh, that's crazy, man. Are you good? And he's like, yeah, I feel totally fine. Everything's okay for me. I think I had it earlier in the week. I must have given it to them.
Wow.
And then he texted us yesterday. I was like, hey, man, I've been throwing up all weekend long, too. Man. It's like, come on, dude. So am I going to get sick next? I think I avoided the worst of it. I think T-Bone might have gotten it over the weekend as well. It was a rough weekend for the station.
Yeah, Brooke too, no doubt.
Lindenwood has put out a pretty good roster of broadcasters, especially over the last decade or so. And you go back a little further, Randy, not too bad.
Yeah, fun
for
to
the
get
Lindenwood Lions.
Yeah, fun to get everybody together, and they won their game 61-0.
Yeah, not bad.
That was good
not
too.
Not too shabby. All right, my number 3. Are we sure Matt LaFleur is in a top 3 coach in the NFL right now?
Second down and goal from the 5. Willis keeps on the zone read, bouncing towards the goal line. Touchdown, Malik Willis.
Randy, what's going on here? The Packers without Jordan Love are just going out there and taking teams to the woodshed. They did this over the weekend against the Titans, and I'm not trying to tell you that the Titans are some juggernaut. They're definitely not, and they've got a quarterback problem. Oh, boy, I don't know what they're doing over there, but their defense is legitimately good, and the Packers were able to put up 30 against them with Malik Willis as their starting quarterback, a guy that the aforementioned Titans said, please take him away. Anybody, take him from us. I think Matt LaFleur over the last couple of weeks has shown us a lot about what he is as a head coach. I think early on in his career, Randy, a lot of us looked at him and were like, that's an Aaron Rodgers creation. I saw what you did in Tennessee. I'm not sure your offense is all that good. That's an Aaron Rodgers creation. Since Rodgers has left, I have been more and more convinced that LaFleur is a legit top 5 coach in the NFL. I couldn't be more impressed with what the Packers have done over the last couple of weeks.
Well, let's start with his staff. He recognized the deficiencies in his coaching staff last year, so he went out and stole a college head coach, Mark Halfley, to become his defensive coordinator. They've got 5 starting number 1 draft choices on defense, plus a couple of other guys that were number 1 picks that play on that defense on a regular basis. And here's the best part about it. I loved Aaron Jones, but they go out and they say, you know what? We got somebody better. We can find somebody better in Josh Jacobs. Jacobs gets hurt. He's got the bad back going, but he's had about a week back. But they still run the ball. They say, we are going to expose Malik Willis as a passer. And with a virtually brand new offensive line, they're able to run the ball. Willis only had to throw it 19 times. What did he throw? Like 13 times in his first game. Yep. And they just find a way to win. He adapts to the players that he has at the moment.
37 carries for 190 yards against one of the 5 best run defenses in the NFL is what they were able to do yesterday against the Titans. It's really remarkable.
Very impressive. And yeah, I would put him top 5. He wins 13 games every year. That's pretty good.
That's the thing, man. He's doing this with different quarterbacks now. He's changing up his system. He has the running game element that some of these, like Mike McDaniel, who I think is a really good coach, but the running game is flashy, but it's not as physical as what they have in Green Bay. And he's doing this in the NFC North. It's amazing.
And let's not dismiss how great he made Jordan Love last year, too, right? He's pretty darn good.
Number 2.
BK, you were there on Friday night, Blues and Brews over at Anheuser-Busch. It was a fun night. It's great to see the players interact with the fans and have such a good time. And the Blues fans, Cardinal fans are a huge group. Blues fans are the most passionate fans in town, and they show up for everything, and they did in big numbers. Got a chance to see the Charles Glenn group on Friday night and got a chance to hear from some of the players. And the players were amazed, like we are, that they do it every every year, that they have one day of practice basically, and then they're playing games. But the Blues do everything right from the perspective of off the ice, in interacting with their fans, in dealing with their sponsors and their partners. The Blues do everything right, and this was thrown together, the first one of these, in just about 3 weeks last year, and now it's become an annual cool event, the Blues and Brews over the Brew.
Yeah, I thought the crowd for this one was amazing. Last year was really great, don't get me wrong, but this year was pretty special. We drove up, I took the little guy out there. Last year was one of the first times that we had taken Luca at any public event. This year you got there and it was just a different vibe. It was packed to the gills in that place. It was a really good time. It was great to see everybody out there. Great to be able to interact with some of the people from the Blues organization. I think there's some real buzz for this team going into this season. We'll see if the team is able to capitalize on that. But there's more excitement than there has been in the last couple of seasons.
No doubt. Oh, what's your number two?
My number two. Going back to the NFL, Randy, this was not a very good weekend for our guy Bryce Young.
One timeout left in their back pocket. Dalton taking a shot to the end zone. It is caught.
Okay, Andy Dalton going out there and throwing for 320 yards with the same supporting cast that you have had trouble with, and that I watched everybody on every network yesterday during the pregame shows, Randy, saying, well, how could you do this to Bryce Young? What did you think was going to happen? Look at who he's throwing to. Yeah, Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen. What did you think was going to happen with this Panthers team this year? Well, I mean, the bar wasn't particularly high, apparently. All you had to do was go out there and show some base level of competence. Bryce Young is just not it. I can't remember the last quarterback that for on-field reasons, Jamarcus Russell is a different conversation entirely, but for on-field reasons that went as high as Bryce Young did, that just completely fizzled out the moment that he got to the NFL level. It's crazy.
The reason that you don't remember it is because there isn't one. He's had the worst first 18 games in the history of the league. But here's what happened yesterday. Andy Dalton is essentially a coach. He coaches himself. He's 36 years old, and he's been around the block. They bring in Bryce Young. Frank Reich is his coach for a half season. Then he's got another head coach to head down the stretch in Steve Wilkes. Then he gets another head coach now and another offensive coordinator, 3 offensive coordinators in 18 starts in the NFL. He hasn't had the opportunity to learn how to be an NFL quarterback. And the best thing that could happen to a guy like that would be to get traded to the Rams and sit behind Matthew Stafford and get coached by Sean McVay for a year.
Darnold's route.
Right. Yep.
He went to San Francisco, spent a year out there, learned the system, got coached up a little bit, and now we're seeing what the results are in Minnesota.
And we just talked about Jordan Love, how advantageous it was for him to be able to sit for a year. You watched, and I would guess with Alex Smith there, the Chiefs fans were still clamoring in that first year for Patrick Mahomes, right? How much of an advantage, though, did Mahomes get from being able to sit for that year behind Alex Smith?
I will forever wonder how Andy did it. Like how you see what you have behind the scenes with Mahomes. Because he knew, everybody within the organization will tell you, like, we knew what this was. We didn't know if he was ready yet, but we knew what was eventually going to be coming. How did Andy Reid, who's been in this game as long as anybody, see that at practice, see what he's getting from Alex Smith on the field every Sunday, which was really good. He was a really good player that year, but not decide at any point, like, hey, let's go ahead and see what we got. Let's go ahead and put this guy in the game. That was pretty impressive discipline by him, and I think what you're seeing across the NFL, and I get it, because you got this model now that exists where it's like, if we catch lightning in the bottle the way that the Texans did, for example, with C.J. Stroud, we can push, and for the next 4 years we're a contender. The Panthers were just so broken as an organization. And honestly, we mentioned the Sam Darnold comparison, we mentioned the Alex Smith comparison. Bryce Young just doesn't have the talent, man. He's too small. He doesn't have a big-time arm. Like, I'm not sure it's going to work for him at this level.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't think he's been put in a good situation either. And is he, 5'11", 204?
I don't think that 204 is real. I think he's like $190.
Yeah.
Maybe
He was 204 at the combine, but yeah, he might have just been buffed up for the combine. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with him and where he goes. I've got this great little thing for barbecuing. It's called the Weber Eye Grill. And last night I did swordfish, and you have to put the probe in the fish or whatever you're making, and it had to be 145 degrees internal temperature. Bryce Young is probably like 90 degrees internal temperature.
Sure.
He is not done yet, and they need to let him just put that probe in him and let it get to 145.
This is like a commentary from when he was a baby.
I didn't know where this was going. I knew we were going to land the plane
This is going to be a high joke, isn't it?
I was like all of you in the listening audience right now, like, man, Randy's bringing up a barbecue with Bryce Young. He's saying he's cooked. I'm not sure where we're going here with this.
Number 1.
BK, in my years of covering sports, the most fun I ever had was covering the 1999 Rams. And it was so cool to see those guys back in town on Saturday night for the reunion. Isaac Bruce had the group over at the Lowe's Hotel on Friday night for his gala, which was completely sold out and did exceptionally well. And Isaac's foundation, Tiffany Burris and everybody involved did a spectacular job. But it was so great to get to see Adam Timmerman again. And it's like, because I was there every day, and Dick Vermeil collected really good people. So you see these guys 25 years later, and Mike Gritadori gives a big bear hug, and you talk to Marshall about what's going on. Torrey Holt, one of my favorite athletes ever, and Ernie Conwell and Mike Jones and Tom Newton, just such a great group of people. And that's not only a highlight for this weekend, that'll be a highlight for me for 2024, because I think now, 25 years later, without having a team here, we probably aren't going to have another opportunity to get that team back together. And for you guys, you barely remember the greatest show on turf, right? If you're just a little bit younger, you don't remember it at all. And so I think there's a generation, maybe 2 generations now, of sports fans that don't remember them. And at some point, we'll reach a point of diminishing returns in getting that group back together publicly. But man, it was fun.
So one of my early childhood memories, I grew up on the other side of the state, Randy, as you know. So for me, it was a really big deal when the Chiefs would beat the Rams in the preseason for the Governor's Cup.
Governor's Cup, baby.
So a reminder for all of you that get mad at me for being a Chiefs homer, because it's been so easy for me my entire life as a Chiefs fan, seeing exactly 0 playoff wins until the mid-2010s. I was born in 1992. That's where things started, was, yes, they got the Rams, the greatest show on turf in a preseason game. I did want to ask you, though, as a follow-up to that, Randy, from what I understand, Marshall was a bit of a prickly personality at times to cover in his playing days. What's it like to catch up with him now compared to what it was like back then?
He's happy and laughing and having a good time. I think that he was just, like a lot of athletes, just so cautious about dealing with the media as a player. But he was cautious of everybody. I remember hearing a great story. The league brought the Hall of Famer Mike Haynes in to talk about just being mature and doing the right thing out in public. And Haynes says, hey, if you go into a bar and your friends start to get into it with somebody, and Marshall stands up in the meeting and says, hey, Mike, hold on a second. If you go into a bar and your friends start to get into it with other people, they aren't your friends. You shouldn't be with them. He's remarkably mature, but he had a great time with his teammates the other night. It was good to see him.
All right, my number 1 thing. Sorry.
Right,
I'm going to figure this thing out over the course of time.
You got it.
Is anybody in the NFL actually good? Because I saw over the weekend, Randy, yesterday, an absolute collapse by one of the teams that I was pretty convinced going into it that they were.
Purdy, comeback, complete, Rams win, taking the lead with 2 seconds left.
I know they were without a bunch of their playmakers. No Deebo Samuel, no George Kittle, no Christian McCaffrey, and so that's a tough game for the 49ers. But San Francisco is now 1-2 on the season, and you just lost. I don't want to hear any of the excuses for San Francisco, because the Rams also have an entire team on the injured reserve and a defense that is made up by a bunch of practice squad players, first and second year guys right now. So that's a game the 49ers need to win. Randy, let me list you the teams that are, as of today, 3-0 on the season, okay? Steelers, Vikings, Seahawks, and then, of course, the Chiefs. 3 of those 4 teams are shocking to be 3-0 at this point in the regular season. Randy, who's good in this league right now? Like,
Well,
actually good.
Right as we speak, the Vikings are really good. The Steelers, I'm not completely sold yet. The
I
Chiefs,
think they have a great defense, a truly spectacular defense.
right, yeah.
That's all
The
I'm willing to
Chiefs
say
are
about them.
great, but there aren't. Let's do it. Who's great? there's one great team, right? And the Ravens, by the way, the Ravens are smart, and they handled their business.
You would say
yesterday.
right now the Chiefs are great? Because I'm not sure I would.
Yeah, well,
As of today, I think they will be.
Yeah.
But I think as of today, you're
Are they-
three plays away from being 0-3.
are they playing to their level? No, but are they a great team? I think they are. But here's the thing: when I was a kid. In the NFL, they played 6 preseason games.
Yeah.
So right now is
Man,
where
that's
they
crazy.
would be
They played
starting.
6 preseason games?
Yeah, they
back
played
in the day?
14 regular season and 6 preseason games.
My
so right
God.
now is where they would be starting the season. Even with the greatest show on turf, coaches had access to players through most of the postseason. The offseason program went April, May, a large part of June. Then the players would get off for the rest of June and most of July. And then you had 2 days in camp. I remember the last year the Rams were here. Jeff Fisher telling me, my last year, this was 2010 with Tennessee, we had 39 practices. And then his last year here, they had 15. So they cut their training camp practices in half. So players don't practice anymore.
Yep.
And players aren't great, which leads to teams not being great. And they have to evolve during the course of the season. And that's why right now the Chiefs are pretty darn good. They're going to be great by week 8. But that's the problem with the league right now is that players aren't coached. And there's no physicality at all. Nobody teaches tackling.
That is one thing that the Chiefs have that a lot of teams don't.
Yeah.
They have a very old school coach that has a very difficult camp. Hell, Mike Tomlin, how many times have we heard Kerry Davis talk about this? That dude runs a very difficult training camp, and it's no coincidence that they get off to hot starts at the beginning of the year because they're just ready to play actual organized football, and so many of these teams are basically playing 7-on-7 all preseason.
Jimmy Johnson, when he coached the Cowboys in the late 80s, early 90s, for a 16-week season, every Wednesday and Thursday was a padded practice. Now teams can have a maximum of 14 padded practices a season.
Yeah, you basically have one a week where it's like, this is our day that we actually get to work.
Yeah. So what it comes down to is players aren't prepared to play. And that's why teams aren't prepared to play and we don't see greatness. However, that being said, who left that Cowboys-Ravens game yesterday when the Cowboys started coming back? Because the competitive level is compelling. It's just not the sport that we knew as kids.
Agreed.
That's BK. I'm Randy. Matthew is here. And coming up, Eli Drinkwitz had a rough go, man. They were fortunate to get out of Saturday. But maybe that's just part and parcel of what Mizzou is. That's next on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Over the weekend, the Cardinals were officially eliminated from playoff competition in 2024. Also over the weekend, some big games in college football. The Fighting Illini on Friday pull off the win over Nebraska 31-24 in overtime with some big defensive plays as they top the, at the time, 22-ranked Cornhuskers. And they made it interesting. The Missouri Tigers also got away with a win in overtime at 30-27 over unranked Vanderbilt. The Missouri Tigers have since tumbled a little bit down the rankings. Also a win over the weekend, St. Louis City SC getting their first away victory of the season as they walk away with 3 points with a 2-1 victory over the San Jose Earthquakes. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
First off, you had it right here. Somebody asked about the end of the first half. Yeah, totally my fault. That was a really haphazard decision by me, and the team bailed me out, bottom line. And I've got to be much better. And so should have never done that.
Eli Drinkwitz after the 30-27 double overtime win against Vanderbilt Saturday at Faurot Field, and accountability is a good thing for a head coach. I'm glad that he was able to say that after a win rather than a loss, and it has not been very pretty. And this is a game, BK. How did you feel about this? I look at the statistics. I look at what Cook did. I look what Burden did. I look what Noel did. And I'm thinking, okay, how was this game as close as it was? Then you look at what happened with the special teams and just look at Eli, like he said, messing up a couple of what, for us, as we're watching on TV, we say, why is this happening? And the game just sped up for him and kind of spun out of control.
It was so poorly coached. I mean, the end of the first half and the end of regulation, the way that he coached either scenario was just mind-bogglingly stupid. So,
do you think he was coaching out of fear when he didn't go for it on the 4th and 1?
So let's go back to the situation. So the end of the first half, tied at 10 for anybody that wasn't watching at the time. It's a 4th and 3 of the Missouri 47. They go up there, they're going to fake as if they're going to go for it, and then, nope, we're not actually going for it here. We're going to call a timeout. Concern number one, don't call a timeout in that spot. You had 3 at the time. All you got to do, the ball was at the Mizzou 47-yard line. Just take the delay. Take the delay. Play clock restarts. You get your punt team out there. If you're planning on punting, and they had to have known at the time that was going to be the plan, well, then don't take the timeout. Take the delay. Now you've got your 3 timeouts for defense. Still got about a minute left in the first half. You can potentially get the ball back in really good field position with an opportunity to once again kick a field goal at the end of the first half. So either you take the delay or you call the timeout and you go for it. Those are your 2 options there. He chose option C somehow, which was take the timeout and then punt, and then you get into halftime. All right, so that's the first one. You asked about the second one, which is the end of regulation. Tied at 20, 4th and 1, Vanderbilt 47. Timeout with 1:14 to play. I just explained the second half end of regulation one. So you take the timeout, Vandy Fair catches it inside of the 10. About a minute left is what you should have had there whenever they catch it. Randy, I don't understand what you're doing there. I don't. You again, you have 2 options there. You can either punt it after not taking the timeout, or you can go for it.
Yeah.
I would have gone for it. I guess, punting, but you have to leave yourself the out of getting the ball back there, and he didn't allow for that. I think he coached scared because of his kicker.
Yeah, and their defense, because they allow big plays, and all it takes is one 20-yard pass play by Vandy to set themselves up in field goal position. Their kicker, he wasn't any great shakes either, but we know he had the leg to hit a field goal. Thank goodness he didn't at the end of double overtime. But you could have lost the game very easily there. So I understand coaching out of fear there because of what he had seen over the previous 60 minutes.
Yeah, and the end of the first half situation, I mixed them up, unfortunately. 4th and 3, Mizzou 47. He snapped the ball with 8 seconds left. Cook sacked for a 5-yard loss. The literal only thing that you cannot do there is get sacked to take even more of a loss, setting them up for an even easier field goal. You hand them 3 points going into the second half. Those 3 points ended up being very, very meaningful by the end of that regulation. My concern level, though, and this is ultimately what matters, Randy, like a lot of Mizzou fans came out of that one in a pure panic. Brady Cook's not the guy. Go to Drew Pine, make the switch. He didn't have a good game. Brady Cook played what I thought was maybe his worst game as a Missouri Tiger. Are we just so incapable of putting things into context now that we have lost all perspective on anything? Because I left that game saying, oh, I've watched that game before. It happened 4 times last year.
It did.
Right.
4. They beat MTSU by 4. Middle Tennessee State at home by 4. They need a fortuitous situation with the thicker kicker hitting a 61-yard game winner to beat K-State at home. And then here in St. Louis, they only beat Memphis by 7.
That's the game that it reminded me of.
That
most.
game was in the balance throughout, too.
And that game was ugly to watch. No Missouri fan enjoyed it for a second. It just felt just weird from the moment that kickoff was put into the air. And then let's not forget, a bad Florida team had Missouri on the ropes at home towards the end of the season when at the time we knew that was a good Missouri team. They had just beat Tennessee, just absolutely destroyed Tennessee the previous week. And it required a 4th and 17 conversion for Missouri to set themselves up to be able to win that game as well. This is how it goes, man. Like, look across college football right now and look at all of the teams that you thought coming into the season were good that are losing those games. Ultimately, what matters, Missouri won. They took care of business. It was unbelievably ugly, and they have a lot of stuff that needs to get fixed. The defense, I don't understand what's going on here where they, like, can't show up for the first 2 drives of the game, and then it clicks for them, and they figure it out the rest of the way. They need to get going quicker in these games. The offense has got to find out the passing game. The running game's really good, dude. It might be better than it was a year ago. But the passing game is just so stuck in the mud, the same way that it was at this point last year, by the way. It's going to come. I think this is still going to be a really good team. This is a perfect week for a bye. But, man, the way that fans are reacting right now, Randy, I know there's expectations, and so that changes the way that we're watching this team. I think they're going to be fine long term.
I agree. A couple of things. Number one, with the passing game, you wonder why they have such ease in throwing the touchdown pass to Burden in the first overtime, right? Why can't we see that all the time?
Right.
He was all alone. Here's the other thing. The AP rankings today mean nothing. Like you said, they won the game. They won the game. And here on September 23rd, AP rankings mean nothing. The real rankings, the College Football Playoff Committee rankings, don't come out until November 5th. That's after Week 10. By that time, Oregon, ahead of Mizzou, will have played Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State's also ahead of Mizzou. Penn State they're ahead of Mizzou. Ohio State and USC before we get to November 10th.
Don't forget about the Illini, too.
Right, exactly. Ole Miss has LSU and Georgia. Tennessee has Alabama and Georgia. There's lots of losses to occur in the top 10 before we get to the real rankings.
And I saw a lot of people over the weekend, and it's true. Like, I can't really disagree with the point. Hey, if Missouri plays that way against Texas A&M, they're going to lose. Agreed. They will. Yeah. If they play the exact same game against Texas A&M that Missouri just played against Vanderbilt, they will lose. I'm not anticipating that. And I'll admit if I'm wrong. I was wrong about that game. I thought Missouri would win that game kind of going away. I thought they would put Vandy away early. But Diego Pavia, people seem to not be understanding. This guy is an unbelievable football player.
He's a talent.
The Vanderbilt quarterback put together a season last year that, if you're just looking at the numbers, the only guys that are comparable in recent seasons were Jaden Daniels, who won the Heisman, and Jalen Hurts, who finished second in the Heisman voting. He's a real talent, to put it in your words, Randy. So it was a frustrating win, but it was a win. They got out of there with a win.
I'd much rather have a bad win than a good loss.
Yes.
And one other thing here, when you say if they play the way, people ask that, if they play the way they did this. When have you ever seen any team in your football watching experience that has played every single game the same way?
Good point.
It doesn't happen. And
how about Northern Illinois, who beat Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago? And hey, remember that Buffalo team that Missouri beat? What was it, 38-0?
Yeah.
Buffalo just beat Northern Illinois over the weekend.
Yep. Just go back to what Nick Saban said. And I talked to A.J. McCarron about this, and he expanded on it. And Saban would tell the media, he said, you guys talk about this. What if we play this way next week? He said, not only every game, but every play takes on a life of its own. And I said, I asked McCarron, I said, what did Coach Saban talk to you guys about? He said, that's exactly what he said. He said, every play is its own story. There are no two plays, are no two games. That's what makes it great, is that it's different every single time you watch a play, and not one play or game is comparable to another. And I would guess that with a bye week, Mizzou will be a completely different looking team in terms of quality when they play Texas A&M than what we saw on Saturday.
By the way, Texas A&M has their own problems. They just beat Bowling Green over the weekend at home, 26-20. So it's not like that is like the perfect situation for them either. One other thing that we need to get to here, Randy, real quick. Credit to the Illini, man.
Yep, big time. Big time.
What a win on Friday night on the road at Nebraska. Their biggest win probably since Penn State back in 2021. Only their second true road win against an AP top 25 ranked opponent since 2007. Second since 2007. I got to give a lot of credit to Brett Bielema. I think he got a lot of crap at Arkansas for unrealistic expectations. Look at what the program has been at Arkansas since he left. It's basically been the best version of what he wanted it to be. So Brett Bielema is a really good football coach. He's a guy that is a very good fit at a program like Illinois where the expectations are realistic year to year. This is a team that can win 7 or 8 games, and I'll be very curious to see what they look like next week, even if they do lose against Penn State. I think Illinois fans are starting to settle in with a really nice program that can consistently get you to 7+ wins. That's a good place to be as a program where you're playing relevant football with the chance to beat some Titans every single season.
They're 4-0. They're number 19 in the country and still on their schedule. They've got Purdue at home. Now, it's not easy. Like you said, they've got Penn State at Penn State this week, and then after Purdue, they have Michigan at home. They're number 12 in the country. They've got 8th-ranked Oregon on the road, but they still have Minnesota. They still have Michigan State. They still have Rutgers. They still have Northwestern. So there might be 5 wins left. There might be 9 wins there for Illinois if everything falls their way.
Ceiling for the season is determined by getting 1 win against these 3 opponents, Penn State, Michigan, and Oregon. Over the next 4 weeks, those are 3 of the opponents that you're going to be going up against. If you can get 1 win against those 3, and you have now banked that win in against Nebraska on the road, this will be one of those seasons that Illinois fans will remember forever.
And pretty obvious. I think the most affected of those teams negatively this year is Michigan, and you get Michigan at home. The other 2 are on the road.
They can't throw a forward pass, which seems important.
Yeah, so if you're going to win one of those, it's probably Michigan. BK and Randy, coming up, we've got Take It or Leave It. Get your text into the Air Comfort Service text line. I don't know if I'm going to get help here today. 314-399-9646. 314-399. Yo-ho! TIOLI next on 101 ESPN. Hey, I want you to know about my friends at Together Credit Union. What a great local organization they are. They have 14 area branches, and right now you can get Empower Checking with Together Credit Union. And with Empower Checking, you're going to earn interest on your checking account. That's pretty cool. How often do you get that anymore? Well, if you go to togethercu.org or just go to one of those 14 branches, you can set up your Together Credit Union Empower Checking account and start earning interest on your checking account. Now, one of the other things you have to do is make sure that you to get your City debit card. You can get your St. Louis City SC debit card from Together Credit Union with Empower Checking. And what you get with that is the ability to go to City Park, get express entry into the stadium, and get 10% off every single thing you buy, whether it's concessions or merchandise from City SC. So right now, head to togethercu.org and set up that Empower Checking, and you'll absolutely love what Together Credit Union can do for you. It's a great local organization. You'll love working with them. Stop by one of their locations today and get your Empower Checking.
$9-646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
It is time for TIOLI here on 101 ESPN. BK in for Brooke, Matthew, and Randy. Get your text in, 314-399-9646, 314-399-YO-HO. All right, guys, Sam Darnold yesterday in the Vikings' 34-7 win over Houston was 17 of 28 for 181 yards, 4 touchdowns. Darnold leads the NFL with 8 touchdown passes. Take it or leave it, Sam Darnold is actually good.
Leave it. I don't think Sam Darnold is actually good, but I think he's good in the way that Baker Mayfield is suddenly good now. I think he's capable of making the big-time throws that allow you the opportunity to have explosive plays in the passing game. And when you have Justin Jefferson as one of your lead receivers and he's making plays for you left and right, and you have a guy in Kevin O'Connell who I mentioned earlier, I think Matt LaFleur, top 5 coach in the NFL right now, Kevin O'Connell might be right there with him in terms of a guy that I trust to put my quarterback in a position to succeed. So I don't know that very much of this is Sam Darnold. I think he has very good arm talent. We've heard about that for years now. But he's finally making less of the stupid mistakes. And when you're able to eliminate those from your game, you're able to succeed. So I don't know that he's good, but I think he's in a very good situation right now. And that's enough for the Vikings to win like 10 or 11 games.
I compared Darnold, and in this incarnation of Sam Darnold, to what Carson Palmer ultimately became with the Arizona Cardinals, because he was not well coached in Cincinnati. He did make a playoff with them, but he always had the arm talent. He was a very skilled player, both of them, by the way, out of USC. And what they wound up doing with him in when he got to Arizona was they cut down the field. Rather than putting the field in thirds, they cut the field in half, right down the middle, and they said, okay, you can pick one or the other, but not 3. They didn't give him enough choices, and I would guess that's what O'Connell has done with Sam Darnold. And I think in the system that he's playing, is he ever going to be a guy like Kurt Warner who's going to be able to read a defense before the play starts? No, but I think if you give him fewer choices, he can be really good, and I think that's where Darnold is right now.
I think that throw up the seam last week that everyone talked about for good reason is why. It's because everything tells you that this guy, if you give him protection, if you give him receivers, he should be able to make standard NFL throws like that. And the problem was early in his career in New York and Carolina, he wasn't just completing that throw. Just outside shoulder, up the seam against a cover 2, just like all you got to do, just a regular just coverage beater like that every quarterback to win football games has to hit. He wasn't hitting it there. He hit it against a good defense last week, and I think that's just so indicative of what he's become.
And he's got a receiver he trusts.
Yep.
He's got a coach that puts him in a position to succeed, and he's not being asked to do too much. You add all of that up, it's a pretty good team.
It's all about structure. Same thing with what we're seeing from Malik Willis. I don't know if he can do that for the long term, but the structure is perfect for him right now.
All right, for my TIOLI today, Travis Hunter right now is 7th in college football in yards per game receiving with 118 yards per game right now. He also happens to be one of the best cornerbacks in the country as well. Guys, take it or leave it. Travis Hunter, the all-star corner / wide receiver, all-everything player for Colorado, as of today, should be the front runner to win the Heisman Trophy. Take it or leave it.
I think because of what we've seen from Beck so far, and he's up there as one of the guys, right? Dart is one of the guys from Ole Miss. I would take that. He is, if you're looking for the best player, and that's what the Heisman Trophy Committee asks you to vote on, is the best player in college football. I don't know that you could go anywhere else but Hunter.
Rockio?
Yeah, I'm taking it. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's done. Like, he's now had 2 back-to-back weeks where he's had almost double-digit catches, if not double-digit catches, plus 100 yards, a touchdown, and a big defensive play. Last week it was an interception. Yeah. This week it was a forced fumble. And then obviously he's involved in the even bigger play. So both those times he's the first player to do those things in like the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
Or
130 receiving yards and a forced fumble, the first FBS player in the last 20 years to do that.
And then the week before that, 10 catches, 100 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He was one of 2 players in the last 20 years to do that as well. So, I mean, when you do things that no one else does, that's one of the things that you cross off the Heisman, checklist. The other problem, though, is the team mentality around him, I think, is kind of marred it.
So that's what I'm curious about, because normally what you see here is like your team has to win 10 games for you to even be eligible to win the Heisman. And if you don't play quarterback, like, good luck. Good luck winning it, again, unless you have a top-tier team and you're the reason why they are an elite program. For example, Devontae Smith. That's the most recent example of what we've got here. But we also just don't see players that perform like this on both sides of the football, so it's almost hard to find a comparable. I think what he needs Miami to fall off a cliff. If Miami falls off of a cliff and they lose, like, at Louisville, they don't have many losses on the schedule potentially. They only have one top 25 team remaining on their schedule the entirety of the 2024 regular season. If Miami loses that game, Cam Ward maybe has a little bit of a step back in terms of his odds to win it, and that's the way that Travis Hunter can jump him. I would say, if you're looking to make a little bit of coin, go over to the Circus Sportsbook app. Travis Hunter, 17-1 to win the Heisman this year. He's 8th. He's behind Quinn Ewers, who's not even playing right now. I like it a little bit.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
And by the way, if Judkins from Ohio State has a 230-yard rushing game, then all of a sudden everything changes, because Ohio State's going to be there, and the Ohio State running back is something that we voted on before.
Yeah. Named like 6 times. Take it or leave it. It's time to start worrying about Travis Kelce's play.
Take it.
I'm
for the regular season. If you're a fantasy owner, you should worry about it.
Oh, yeah, right.
I think he's going to be fine once you get to the postseason. He'll do what he did last year. But for the regular season, yeah.
He is being preserved by Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. He's not taking hits, and when they need him, he'll be there, but they want him there for the second half of the season in the playoffs. You're exactly right.
Take it or leave it. Travis Hunter will be able to play 2 ways in the NFL.
Leave it.
Leave it.
Yeah, that's too hard, too taxing.
Take it or leave it. If you have a guy who can play elite cornerback and a guy who can play elite wide receiver, you have him play elite cornerback.
Leave it. Look at the money that receivers are making now.
I'm not talking from his perspective. I'm saying from a coaching perspective. If you were drafting him from a GM perspective,
which one makes more money?
I would be thinking, if you can play elite cornerback and you can play elite wide receiver, the one I'm having you play more often than not is elite cornerback.
But which one makes more money?
Wide receiver.
I'm saying this from a GM's perspective. I hear you. The reason why it makes more money is because GMs value it more.
Here's the thing. You can't play a zone offense.
Exactly. There are fewer elite corners in the NFL, so I get where you're going with that, Rock, but it is... Teams place more emphasis on scoring points, and if he can be an elite wide receiver in this league, you got to do it.
All of the rules are set up against quarterbacks and for wide receivers.
So you got to get the best one possible so you can have a chance to shut people down every once in a while.
I do think his size profile is better to be a corner in the NFL, so I don't know that it's going to be a decision for him. I think teams will kind of dictate what he
And you can if he is playing corner, you can slide him in at wide receiver. Dallas did that, of course, with Deion over the years. Roy Green started his career as a defensive back and moved to wide receiver.
And I guess my next point was going to be which way is it easier to moonlight? And I think it's easier to play full-time cornerback and moonlight as a wide receiver than it is to be a full-time wide receiver and then try to moonlight as a cornerback.
Right.
And I just think that's where you get your most bang for your buck. But again, if you're Travis Hunter, to your point, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, let's play some cornerback, I would go, no.
Yeah, one side of the ball I'm getting 25 a year. The other side of the ball I'm getting 35 a year.
All right. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Randy.
And thank you very much for your texts. Coming up, the Cardinals are going to win more than 71 games, which is what they won last year. Do we feel better about the Cardinals this year than we did at the end of last year? That's next on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you're a plumber and you're out and about this morning and you aren't completely happy with your employment status, know that Hoffman Brothers is hiring. The plumbing team at Hoffman Brothers is growing, and they're looking for licensed service plumbers to join their winning team. The services Hoffman Brothers offers are from minor plumbing repairs to plumbing installations, water heater repairs and replacements, and drains, and they offer outstanding benefits, top pay in the industry, and even have the potential for a sign-on bonus. Visit HoffmanBros.com to find out more info. They give you 5 weeks PTO, company-provided work vans, plus gas, cell phone reimbursement. That's always important. Plus company-provided iPads with cellular data packages, tool allowances, paid training, and more. Learn more by going to Hoffman Bros, HOFFMANN, HoffmanBros.com, and get started. And oh, by the way, if you need plumbing, Hoffman Brothers is the place to go. Their number 314-664-3011, or make an appointment online at HoffmanBros.com. Hoffman Brothers, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
perspective on the day's top stories. It's the Opening Drive's Fresh Take.
Not even close, man. Last year was terrible. You weren't headed in a direction that gave any type of hope as to what's possible for the organization moving forward, right? Did we have the season we wanted to? No. Do I feel like if we were more consistent as an offense, I mean, we've talked about the runners in scoring position. That's just part of it. But if we did some things better, we'd be in a different position? Yes. But when you look at this club and you're able to remove yourself emotionally from the win-loss column and just say, all right, where are we headed? There's a lot to be excited about for the future.
That's the Cardinal skipper Ollie Marmol yesterday on KMOX's Sports on a Sunday Morning program. And when he started off, when he said not even close, do you feel better about this team at the end of 2024 than he felt about the team at the end of 2023? And obviously, last year, BK, they had sold off their starting pitchers. They didn't have starting pitchers. This year, though, they'll have some guys coming back. He'll have Gray back next year. He'll presumably have Kyle Gibson. You've got to feel good about Andre Palante, who again pitched well yesterday. But here's my question. As I try to analyze, yeah, sure, I feel better about a team that probably going to finish over 500 than I did about a team that won 71 games. But he talked about the offensive problems. How do the offensive problems get solved? Is Goldschmidt going to come back and get better? Is Arenado going to improve at the age of 34? Goldie will be 37 or turns 37 here in a couple of weeks. Is Jordan Walker going to turn into the player that they expect him to turn into? Is Burleson going to be able to play for a whole season? He hasn't hit a home run in more than a month. So how does this offense get better in 2025?
So that's kind of where I'm coming from, Randy. Do I feel better about this team than I did last year's team? Yeah. I mean, they won more games, so yes, I do. And I also think the feeling around the team has just been better all season than it was a year ago. I think it was a pretty miserable clubhouse to be in last year, and that's something that would wear on the manager more than it would on us as fans, because we're not in that room every single day. That being said, the direction of the team, if we're just talking about it through that prism of what did you feel better about moving forward last year versus this year? Man, I think it would have been easier for me on the outside looking in to say last year. The reason why is because I still had way more belief at the time, way more optimism about these young players. Look at what Gorman was coming off of last season. I was like, okay, you found your power bat from the left side. I could also convince myself coming off of last year of, hey, maybe that was a one-off for Goldie and Arenado.
Yeah,
I can no longer do that anymore. Now I have to come to terms with the fact that they're just not the same players that they once were. Walker was coming off of a very good season. Maybe it works out for Dylan Carlson if you still had hope for him. Lars Nootbaar, just an injury-riddled season. He'll probably come back fully healthy. Mason Wynn, you saw it at the end of last season. Okay, he looks like he's a bit overmatched at the plate, but if he gets an offseason of working on things, maybe he can become an everyday shortstop the way that he did. And now you look at it, you're like, okay, I kind of like some of these young players, but who's the star? Who's the three-hole hitter for this team moving forward? Who's the cleanup hitter for this team moving forward? And it almost feels like you're back to where you were in 2018, where you had pieces that you can feel good about, but do you have the franchise pillars? And they had to go out and get Goldie and Arenado, and then they missed their window. But that was what you had to do then. What's the move this time around? That's where I don't know that I feel better right now than I did last year.
And here's the other thing that we have to look at. We can feel good about the Cardinals, but Milwaukee's not going anywhere. They lost Yelich for the season. They've dealt with a ton of injuries. Churio is going to be that star that we're talking about that the Cardinals can develop. And organizationally, Milwaukee has it figured out. The Reds have only lost 3 fewer games than the Cardinals, and they just fired their manager. But they have good young starting pitching. They have good young talent, and they have a superstar in Elly De La Cruz. The Pirates have 2 really good young starting pitchers and may or may not have a star in O'Neal Cruz, but they have pitching. If they can fix their bullpen, Pittsburgh is going to be good. And you'd have to expect that the Cubs, with what they added during the offseason, at some point, they're going to turn into the giant again, the sleeping giant. So the Cardinals have to look at the rest of the division, too. The Cardinals not only can maintain and say, okay, we can hope we can get better from within. I think they need to make a move, and I don't think it's there, by the way, but to be competitive for the National League Central title, they need to make a move to import an offensive star, and I just don't see that happening.
And you're not alone on that. I found it interesting over the weekend. Wilson Contreras was asked about how he feels about the club right now. Here's what he had to say. This is via the St. Louis Post-Dispatch website.
There's some areas that we need to be addressed to. I don't know if the front office is going to, but like I said before, we didn't come as an offense at all during the whole year. There's a lot of holes throughout the lineup from 1 to 9. And the only thing that we can control is show up next year and keep working. But as an organization, I think the Cardinals are one of the biggest organizations in baseball, and if I was them, if I was the front office, I'd be hungry to own this division, but we haven't owned this division in the last 2 years.
Found that last part to be pretty interesting, Randy. If I was the front office, I would be wanting to own this division, and we haven't done that over the past couple of seasons. Not calling out the front office necessarily, taking it back a little bit, but more or less saying, hey, we need stuff. And then Nolan Arenado, same thing over the weekend, was asked, I think it was by The Athletic. Katie Wu had a story that came out yesterday saying, hey, we've got a lot of young guys in this room, and they've been performing pretty well, but we need to improve. And I don't know how they go about doing that. This is Nolan Arenado speaking, but I think that we need to have some additions. How do you view these comments from your two highest paid players that are expected to return next year, Randy, given what we know about what this offseason is likely to bring?
I believe that the players feel like, okay, we need more help offensively. But I think that the help offensively is going to come from coaching. And you talk to people around the ball club, and they say our problem with the young players, and I'm specifically talking about Gorman and Walker here, is approach. And not just those two, but for everybody in terms of the runners with scoring position. There needs to be a better approach. And I always thought, in talking to Mark McGwire, who I think was a terrific hitting coach and made hitters better, he talked about approach and the mental aspect of things. And I think the game, just watching, speeds up for a lot of these hitters when there are runners in scoring position. And that's someplace in the game, a lot of hitters, in fact, hitters on this team, won't even listen to their hitting coach. But you have to have a specific mental approach with runners in scoring position to get the bat on the ball rather than trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark all the time. And there are some guys, Brendan Donovan is really good about getting his bat on the ball. Wynn has become really good about that. But I think up and down the lineup, there needs to be a better approach on the part of these hitters.
The other thing they need to do as an organization is invest in that coaching.
No doubt.
And they need to have multiple coaches available to different kinds of players that learn differently, because there are some that are going to take a more analytical approach to things. There are others that say, I don't want any of that. Give me the baseball nerd approach, right? What are the heat zones? Where is this guy? How do the pitches play off of one another, etc.? And then there are other guys that are just see ball, hit ball, and you need somebody that can be able to get the best out of each one of those types of players. And if you only have a couple of guys on the staff that are going to be able to do this, and one of them is just overwhelmed with the numbers and data going into every single matchup of every single series, and the other guy's just going to be trying to find a way to get the most out of Nolan Arenado and Goldie, and they've got to fix. Well, there's nobody else. There's nobody else on the staff right now that can actually just go out there and be like, hey, at BP, I'm going to watch you take it in for today, and we're going to go over things before today's game. They need to invest in this coaching staff. They don't have the numbers of coaches on this staff that they need.
One other quick point about how I feel about next year. You mentioned earlier that this season was probably over at 15-24, and I get trying to win and trying to pacify a fan base. But when it was realistically over, I think they wasted opportunities to see people like McGreevy this year, maybe see a little bit more of Graceffo.
Avon Herrera?
Right. We knew what certain guys were, and they don't know what other certain guys are. I wish we would have had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about them.
I said going into the deadline, like 2 weeks prior to the deadline, hey, why don't you find out what you have with Luken Baker? You've got an internal option that's a right-handed bat. I don't think Luken Baker is going to be the savior of the season. Didn't believe it at the time, still don't believe it today. I'm not sure Luken Baker is a consistent big leaguer for the Cardinals, but you had him on the roster. Go ahead and utilize him.
Right.
Instead of trading for somebody at the deadline. Hey, can we find out what you have with Gordon Graceffo or Michael McGreevy or any of these guys as bullpen arms? Even if they're not starters for you, let's see what they have for you coming out of the bullpen so you don't have to go trade for one. See what you have first and then go make the moves if you find out your internal options can't get the job done for you. They wasted that time. They ended up going out and making the moves, and I liked their deadline, honestly. It didn't work out, but I liked what they did at the trade deadline.
What about calling up a righty who doesn't actually hit lefties that great?
Yeah, instead of doing that.
That is always going to be, my favorite little mini comedy routine from the Cardinals front office this season.
They just, the way that they approached this season with their roster manipulation, it continues.
They're bad at that. I respect the way that they develop talent, get talent into the organization, but their roster construction has left a lot to be desired for a long time.
Yeah, they had Brandon Crawford here on the roster at least 2 to 3 weeks too long.
Well, not only that,
minimum.
but the day they signed Brandon Crawford earlier in the day, the Giants signed Nick Ahmed to a minor league contract. Cardinals would have been just as well off with Nick Ahmed. They needed a guy if Wynn wasn't the guy Nick Ahmed had played. He actually played okay for the Giants, and then they DFA'd him, and I think the Dodgers have since done so too. But Nick Ahmed would have been just as good as, or if not better than, Brandon Crawford for a fraction of the price.
As well as I do, why Brandon Crawford was here. He's friends with Nolan Arenado.
That helps. Yeah, that does help.
That was why he got signed.
Yeah.
Look at the signings that they made in the offseason.
Yeah.
Matt Carpenter, paid friend. Brandon
Yep.
Crawford, paid friend.
Yep. Had traded for Tommy Pham.
Hitting coach.
Yeah.
Look at some of the moves and what they did and didn't do, and you can trace it back to, okay, who are they trying to keep happy here?
Right. Yep. Coming up next year on 101 ESPN, Kerbs will join us to talk some Blues hockey.
Hey, I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, I like things at this point in time in my life that make my life easier. That's where Classic Air Care comes in. How about something as simple as just buying your air filters? If you go to classicaircare.com, in the upper right corner, you're going to see a button. It says Buy Air Filters. You click on it. You order the size you need. It gets delivered to your house on a regular basis. You no longer have to think, is it time to change the air filter? You know why? Because when it comes to your door, you change it. It's a perfect system. They do it with maintenance memberships as well. Classic Air Care does what they can to make your life easier, so when it comes to maintaining your HVAC system, you know that it's being done. You know that it's being done regularly. It's being right, and that means you know that it's working right. So whether it's a repair, whether it's a new system, whether it's just maintenance, or whether it's air filters, you can count on the great care of Classic Air. Check out their Google reviews. They've got a 4.8 Google rating. It's outstanding. Don't take my word for it. Look at the thousands of people that have already used them and been wanting to put reviews on their website for you. It's Classic Air Care. You can make an appointment at classicair.com. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Blues are off and running. Started training camp last Thursday. First game on Saturday and last night, and they've got another one coming up on Wednesday night. And the voice of the Blues here on 101 ESPN, Chris Kerber, joins us. Kerbs, first of all, great job with Blues and Brews Friday night. That was a fun event, and I know all the fans that were there really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. It was fun. About another 2,000 fans showed up. Matt Stell was awesome. Fun little stage show with some of the Blues players that showed up, and I think it's kind of it started a few years back as Icebreaker. We had an event at Ballpark Village, and you and I were talking about it. It's just kind of grown, and to now have that setting of Anheuser-Busch, some country music, some Bud Light, and a whole night of fun was a great night. What a Friday night it was.
Kerbs, when you look at the season now officially kind of kicking off over the weekend with Blues and Brews, but also a couple of preseason games, what have you seen early in preseason action and then, of course, training camp as well that has caught your attention?
Well, this may seem like a bit of a cop-out of an answer there, BK, but to be honest with you, not a whole lot yet. And I mean that respectfully, but the reason I say that is I think what we saw with the prospect camp and what we've seen through the first two games is just an opportunity to get a lot of these young guys, a lot of these prospects, and frankly, the majority of them who you will not see in the later stages of camp, the majority of whom you will not see on a Blues roster, but you are seeing the future. So I was talking to a couple of scouts after the game last night in Des Moines, both with Utah and with the St. Louis Blues. And I'm like, who'd you like tonight? And they're kind of, well, not a whole lot. Well, it's because you're seeing guys just in a situation that they're not in. Camp opened on Thursday, right? You haven't had a whole lot of time to work on things. So as Drew Bannister said, it's a lot about individual effort. Are you seeing guys working hard? So when you see Dalibor Dvorsky, busting his butt to make two great plays in the neutral zone on the same shift that allowed you to get that puck back, a little bit of that relentless style of hockey that we had seen be successful in St. Louis, you're looking for individual things like that. What I'm looking for is, say, the next week and a half, as we see more of the regulars kind of get into some games, we see some of what Drew Bannister wants to put into play actually take shape, and then some things are really going to stand out.
Kerbs, what do you think Buchnevich brings at center as opposed to wing?
Size. Well, that's not actually true because he's the same size if he's at center on wing. So I guess he brings
good point.
To the wing, right? Okay, so let me start over. You know what? I think what they like about him at center, and I'm going to go back to when Andy Murray took David Backes as a young player from the wing and put him at center. The Blues needed something. They needed some size down the middle, and David Backes turned out to be a really good centerman in the National Hockey League. They like his hockey IQ. They like his smarts. They like his ability to play a 200-foot game. And what I think you're seeing is it's like a play of respect, Randy, because they're like, okay, we want to put you in the middle where you can impact more of the play all around the ice rather than just on the wing. With that's going to come a learning curve. I know some people and a lot of people have asked him, even Bernie asked him again at Blues and Brews, would you rather play wing or center? And when we talked to him on Content Day about that, he just flat out said, I don't care. I just want to win. and that's the right attitude. So, he's going to work hard at it. I think that they like his game, all around game so much. They want him hounding that puck and using that size even more down in the offensive zone. And so I guess as challenging as it can be to switch and to learn a new position, try to learn faceoffs more than you ever had before. It's kind of like, dude, we think your game is great and we need more of it.
Kerbs, we've talked a lot about the second-line center position, and it appears at least that job is probably going to be Buchnevich's at this point. How do you view the third-line center as of today?
That's a fascinating one because I think initially you might look, say, at a Reddick Fox and you're thinking fourth line, but when you really dig into him, and this is one of those things that you learn when somebody's in your locker room on a daily basis or, versus, say, you see him 4 times a year playing for the Dallas Stars. You go look at him and you're thinking fourth line defensive role kind of stuff. This guy's got over 200 points, in the NHL. Like, he's got some offensive ability. So, whether that ends up, whether there's a chance that Holloway could play it, whether there's a chance it's Fox, like I got to think right now that you're looking at Braden Shen on the wing. So if he's not it, I think that it's got to be somebody like a Reddick Foxa. And then if a Dvorsky or somebody comes along and really, impresses you, then you can make some adjustment. But right now, I'm kind of penciling Foxa in at that point for a third-line center.
And go ahead.
Is that too much to ask for a guy that hasn't had more than 20 points in a season since 2019, Kerbs?
Nope, because you got to look at where the team is. I mean, numbers are numbers, BK, and there's a lot more that he's going to bring to the table. And when you think of the relentless style of play that he has, and we did see it a bit last night, that they're in Dallas, you're talking about a guy that can get in on the puck, a guy that can kind of impact the flow of the game, a guy that can that can disrupt the other team and will play a physical style. I think right now, because if you are looking at putting Braden Shen on a wing, right, and in that situation, if Braden Shen isn't that third-line center, if you're keeping Buchnevich in there, and there's a lot of ifs in there, right? But if that being the case, to me, right now, let's just assume that a Dalibor Dvorsky goes down to the minors for a little while. And there's reason to think that that's possible just because of the way Doug Armstrong talked about Jake Neighbors and maybe, making a mistake by not putting him down first and that kind of thing. I just think that it gives the Blues roster flexibility right now that they'll be able to move into the season and then adjust.
Well, Kerbs, one of the interesting things about a guy like Foxa, and a great old phrase that I love in hockey is having guys that'll drag people into the fight. And the Blues have a few guys. Shen is that way. Toropchenko is that way. Do you sense that Foxa, not that he's a fighter, but he is physical enough to drag other players into the fight, it seems like?
Yeah, when coaches use that phrase, they use that based on a style of play, and I think he is one of those guys that can. I thought you saw it last night, just that style of his going right in, right through the body. And there was one specific play where the puck was in the corner. He engaged the Utah player even before that they got to the puck. So he made it harder for the Utah player to get in there. Sometimes you'll see a lot of players, okay, we'll slow up and then we're going to battle when we get to the boards. He battled before they got to the boards. And so there's that style. Now I realize, again, like I said, these games are really hard to judge the first couple of training camp. Matthew Joseph may end up being one of those guys. He was absolutely relentless and all over the place in game number one. But, yeah, a couple of guys like that just play a certain style. Ken Hitchcock called them, their conscience line, right? Mm-hmm. When he had Steen and Oshie and Backus going out there, and he knew that they're just going to go in, they're going to bang some bodies, and then they're going to get back to the bench, and they're going to leave the play, for the most part, in a better spot than when they got on the ice. And that can turn the tide of a game. And I don't know that we had a lot of that over the last couple of years. Guys like Reddick Foxa can help with that.
Kerbs, it's great to hear your voice, and we will hear you again on Wednesday night. Blues and Blue Jackets here on 101 ESPN. We always appreciate it. Have a great week.
All right, guys. Have an awesome week. We'll see you at the rink.
You bet, brother. See you later. That is the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, we have the fight, and we need a new fighter. You can text in 314-399-9646, 314-399-YO-HO, and all you need to do is use your name and the word fight, and maybe you will fight me next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, we're reaching that time of year. We're getting close to the Blues opener, and that means you need to know about the Schnucks cookie cakes because the Blues love, or the Schnucks loves the Blues, and they're going to take care of you with cookie cakes as the season gets underway. If you want a beautiful cookie cake from the best bakery in town, then you need to stop by Schnucks. Maybe you have a coworker that has a birthday today. Stop by Schnucks, get a birthday cake, and it'll say happy birthday, whomever. They'll put any name on it you want when you head to Schnucks. And don't forget to use your Schnucks Rewards app because it makes such a major difference. And right now, when you get your Schnucks Rewards app, you also get personalized coupons. And some days, you're going to get 4% back on everything you buy rather than just 2%. You're going to get double the points back when you use the Schnucks Rewards app. All you need to do is go up to your checker, punch in your phone number, and the points are awarded to you. It really is a great thing to have with the Schnucks Rewards app. It's wonderful to use, and it's a great way to save money and get great food. We had a great meal last night from Schnucks, and I hope you will today. Use the Schnucks Rewards app and head to Schnucks today.
This is Rocky O with your Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals eliminated from playoff competition over the weekend, but they still have a few games left to go before the end of the season. In fact, 2 3-game series. First series is going to be against the Colorado Rockies, 7:40 first pitch, and Michael McGreevy is going to be on the start bump for the Cardinals, facing off against Ryan Feltner for the Colorado Rockies. McGreevy on the season is 2-0 through just 10 innings pitched of work so far. Also over the weekend, St. Louis City SC, a big 2-1 victory over the San Jose Earthquakes. That is their first away victory of the season. And speaking of some victories over the weekend, Mizzou and Illinois got by the skin of their teeth. The Illini, a big win, 31-24 in overtime over the Nebraska Cornhuskers, while the Missouri Tigers, again, just by the skin of their teeth, take down Vanderbilt 30-27. That is your Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Welcome to the fight. In the red corner, Average Joe Listener. And in the blue corner, the undisputed king of morning drive. Please welcome Randy Carraker.
Welcome back to the opening drive alongside Matt Rocchio. I'm Brandon Kiley. Randy Carricker's out in the hallway right now. It is time for the fight. We've got Luther on the line. Luther, how you doing on this very wet and rainy Monday morning in St. Louis?
Doing good. Well, we could take the rain, though.
Yeah, we need it. Yeah. Man, do we need it this bad? I don't know. It's going to be a long one. All right, Luther, how you feeling going into this fight going up against Randy Carricker? Are you feeling confident today?
Always confident.
There you go. Okay.
All right, is this your first time?
Words and tone a little different, but
no, first time.
All right, let's see how you do, Luther. Let's get on to question number 1 today. On this day 2 years ago, Albert Pujols launched 2 home runs in an 11-0 win against the Dodgers. The second of which was his 700th home run of his career. Against which Dodgers pitcher did he launch number 700? Was it A, Caleb Ferguson, B, Andrew Heaney, or C, Phil Bickford?
What was B?
Andrew Heaney.
I'm going with B.
All right, number 2, Marty Schottenheimer still owns the record for the most regular season wins without winning a title. Where was his first head coaching job, tallying 3 winning seasons across 5 years? Was it with the Browns, the Cardinals, or the Seahawks?
The Browns.
All right, a little bit of confidence in that.
I like that.
All right, question number 3 for Luther. There are 2 players in Major League Baseball history that won their MVP in their age 39 season. Barry Bonds is one of those 2 players. Who is the other? Is it A, Willie Stargell, B, Dennis Eckersley, or C, Willie Mays?
Willie Mays.
All right, Luther, number 4. What is the highest number an NFL player can achieve in passer rating? Is it 200.0, 158.3, or 179.6?
158.3.
All right,
Luther.
Double check the score really quick with BK, and then we'll bring in Randy Carricker.
Luther, how you feeling about that, my man?
Maybe 50-50.
Luther, is it fair to assume that you're a football guy?
Oh, yeah.
I had a feeling based on the 2 answers, he came out, Browns. My bad. I got to be better. I'll work on that. He immediately came out and knew what his first answer was of the football question, and then was quick with his second answer as well. Randy, we'll be doing a couple football questions today.
Okay, good.
Hello
I like
to
that.
Luther. How you doing?
Luther, good morning. How you doing?
Morning, good. Yourself?
Doing well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for playing.
No problem.
All right, Randy. Question number 1. This is not a football question.
Okay.
On this day 2 years ago, Albert launched 2 home runs in an 11-0 victory against the LA Dodgers. The second of those home runs was number 700 of his career. Which pitcher did he launch number 700 against?
Oh, I know the name, but I'm not going to. Well, just give me the names and I'll answer it for you.
Was it Caleb Ferguson?
No.
Andrew Heaney?
No.
Or Phil Bickford?
Phil Bickford. There you go.
Randy, Marty Schottenheimer still owns the record for the most regular season wins without winning a title in NFL history with over 200. Where was his first head coaching job, tallying 3 winning seasons, across 5 years?
His first head coaching job in
Yes,
the
sir.
National Football League?
Yes, sir.
Where he was like a victim of a drive and a fumble? I will say it was the Cleveland Browns.
Just want it to be known I didn't screw that up. All right, there are 2 players in Major League Baseball history to win the MVP in their age 39 season. Barry Bonds is one of them. Who is the other?
I'm going to go with age 39. My first thought here is Big Papi. And I think I will go with let's see. No, he probably didn't win because he was a DH. A DH has never won. Okay, so let's change things here. Hold on here. We'll think of somebody. So Bonds at 39. I'm thinking steroid era. Although Ted Williams would be the other one that I would consider, but I don't think he was there. MVP. Let's see. I don't. A-Rod wasn't around that long. Yankees, Red Sox, Orioles, Jays, Rays. Nobody pops off there. Angels, A's, Mariners, no. Rangers. Well, this is a really good question. Okay, let's come out on
Attaboy, Rock.
Yeah, good job.
You don't hear that very often. You need to take the wins when you can get them, my man.
Feels good. Let's go.
Padres.
Rock was proud of this one. You could tell just based on the smile that was on his face as I read it.
Giants. Padres. Nobody certainly in. I was. Gonzalez didn't win an MVP. Cards, Cubs. 19. Maybe it is Ted Williams. I'll just I'll take a shot at the Splendid Splinter.
Splendid Splinter. What a nickname. Randy, what is the highest number an NFL player can achieve in passer rating?
158.3.
Didn't give that one away.
All right. We have a winner in today's fight. Luther taking on Randy Carricker. Does Luther walk away a big winner today? It'd be a big weekend and plus Monday for Luthers if he's able to walk away with a win today. Or does Randy Carricker, Megamind, stop him in his tracks? Ring that bell.
The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Carricker.
The fight is presented by Golf Discount of St. Louis, with the most experienced club fitters in town. Why shop anywhere else?
Just win, baby.
I'm sorry, Luther. Randy Carricker just barely beat you. He got you by a score of 3-2 today.
Yeah, that's all right. It was fun.
Yeah, it was a good one today. Let's go through the questions and answers on this day. 2 years ago, Albert Pujols launched 2 home runs in an 11-0 win over the Dodgers, the second of which was his 700th of his career. He launched 699 against Heaney, and then he was pulled. He was immediately pulled out right before Pujols' second at bat. Phil Bickford was put in, and then he launched number 700. Just a little trivia kicker that might be coming down in a few months down the road. Alec Burleson hit his first career home run that night.
Oh, nice.
They launched like 5 home runs that night against the Dodgers. Burleson hit his first career home run.
I was in L.A. and I tried to go to the game, and my wife's best friend said, "No, we shouldn't go. We should just hang out with the entire group while we're at this wedding and go to dinner together." And I said, "That'll be fun. I bet you Albert hit 700 tonight."
Off the Christmas card list. Off the Christmas card list. Marty Schottenheimer still owns the record. Oh my God, still owns the record for the most. Did you hear the crowd? For the most regular season wins without winning a title. His first head coaching job was in fact with the Browns, and as Randy Carricker said it, he got his heart ripped out a couple times, as did the city of Cleveland by a couple famous plays. And I was back here doing the Icky Shuffle because it's the most underrated touchdown dance in the history of the NFL. There are 2 players in MLB history to win MVP in their age 39 season. It's Barry Bonds, and I was chuckling at this one because you said Big Papi, and it gave me the chance to say not Big Papi, but Pops.
Yep.
Willie Stargell, when he won the co-MVP with Hernandez in 79, was 39 years old. And the highest number an NFL player can achieve in passer rating is 158.3, and that's why it's a dumb stat. So a good win for Randy Carricker in the fight today,
PBR
3-2.
is so much better.
Yeah, it's even dumber because I don't even know how we get to there. So Luther, thank you so much for joining the fight and joining the show today.
Thanks.
Thank you, Luther. Good to have you with us. Coming up here on 101 ESPN, Sonny Gray's season is over. So how do we rate it? His first campaign in Cardinal red and white. That's next on 101 ESPN. I want you to know about the Fenton Bar and Grill. It is the place to watch college football in the area. They have amazing beer bucket specials every single Saturday. Plus, they have 3 olive cocktails and Tully honey. They have great drink specials throughout the course of the day, and they're fabulous appetizers. 6 different appetizers for $6 a pop at the Fenton Bar and Grill. 10 TVs and 2 potential games with audio every single Saturday. Plus, an incredible serving staff with Jamie and Dawn and Rachel and Alicia and Casey and Heather every Saturday at the Fenton Bar and Grill. And if you're looking for a great place for lunch today, stop by the Fenton Bar and Grill. They have great comfort food for their specials, and you'll be treated really well by their service staff. You'll be talking sports. You can talk about the Cardinals. The Blues are underway, and just be with a bunch of fellow sports fans. It's a great place to go, and you need to try their trash wings. Their trash wings are the best you'll ever have. Try them with their signature golden sauce or some ranch, and that's a great way to start a great meal, whether it's lunch, maybe happy hour, or dinner at the Fenton Bar and Grill. And when you go, tell them Randy sent you. Brandon Kiley's in for Brooke, who is under the weather today. Matthew Rocchio, Randy Kirk. You don't have to do the other show, do you? You don't.
No,
have to, okay.
no.
You came for Ario? Okay, good.
There was a point in my career, Randy, about probably 2 years ago, even recently.
So Alex is good?
I think he's good, yeah. I think he's good now. T-Bone is in as well, from what I understand today. There was a point in my career not that long ago where I would have said, I'll just do the 6 hours. I'll be good. I'll take the 1 hour in between. That point is not today. Now I have a son that stays home on Mondays. I will be going home right after this show, hanging out with my 1-year-old for the rest of the day. That's the way we're going to be spending it.
Good for you. You and I, it's interesting because I think when people perceived us as having different thoughts about Sonny Gray. When the Cardinals signed him, but I think actually we were saying the same thing in different ways. I
agree,
right? Because I look at him, people thought that I thought Sonny Gray sucked, and I said no. I just don't think that he is a 1A. And the list of 1As is you can do him on less than 2 hands. Sonny Gray was a fine number 2 this year. The Cardinals went 17-11 in his starts. He had a 3.84. He did, and he gave him innings. He did everything that a good, solid number 2 is going to do for you, I think. What did you think of his first season here? And was it what you expected? I didn't expect him to be what he was last year in Minnesota. I thought he was right on par with what I thought he would be.
Agreed. I would also add that outside of the home run ball, I think you could argue was even better than I expected this season. Because I didn't think he was going to do what he did last year. I didn't think he was going to replicate that. I thought he was going to take a bit of a step back, and we'd see a good but not great version of Sonny Gray. Man, he was really good this season. 3.85 ERA, was 36th in Major League Baseball. Randy, I'm about to give a stat that I know you're going to love. 3.1 fielding independent pitching.
Oh, yep,
I know you're big into those
the king
numbers.
In his court. That's my favorite one.
3rd in strikeout rate among qualified starters. 4th in strikeout rate minus walk rate, which is one of those fancy nerdy numbers that basically says, hey, how often are you striking out guys, and are you doing so at the expense of walking the world, which is what some guys in Major League Baseball do. He didn't. He didn't walk anybody, struck out everybody. Top 10 in whiff rate. So you got the pitcher that you signed. You didn't have a number 2. And we spent all offseason talking about this. Randy, we can quibble on whether or not, is Sonny Gray a number 1 or a number 2? He's a front-end starter. He's a guy that you can start in a game 1 or a game 2 of a playoff series. You're like, yeah, that guy can go up against whoever you want, and he can give you a representative start today that gives you a chance to win that game. And that's what you wanted out of Sonny Gray. The problem then and today is that you didn't have anybody to back him up. Their hope was Miles Michaelis could become that and could get back to what he was in 2022. He didn't, and in fact, it went the other direction. He got worse this year, and next year, in my opinion, he shouldn't be a part of your rotation again. I think you should get Michael McGreevy to give you better numbers at 1/18 of the cost. Cool, that's a good way to do business. I go into next year, if Sonny Gray is going to be back, and I fully anticipate that he will with this team, and I expect something pretty similar to what he was this year with hopefully better home run luck. And if you get that and you can get a number 2 to pair with him, I like what the rotation looks like. I just have very little confidence that this team's going to go out and get that guy again.
Well, and that's why we need to hope for Quinn Matthews to ascend quickly and have him be kind of like what Crochet was for the White Sox this year, who made his first major league start. And at least you have that ability. Now, are you going to get the innings next year out of Quinn Matthews? Maybe not. But at least if you have that quality, here's a guy that struck out 200 batters at the minor league level this year. You can say, okay, I've got my 1-2, and then Palante will be fine as a 3 or a 4, and then they're going to give Matz a shot. The people might not like it, but Matz is going to get an opportunity here. And I'm like you. I hope that they can find a way to rehome Miles Michaelis. And then I kind of think they're going to bring Kyle Gibson back. I'd be surprised if Gibby wasn't back. So that takes care of your rotation, and hopefully you have reinforcements, whether it is McGreevy or I have no idea what's going to happen with Zach Thompson now. I thought that's one thing about last year. I thought Zach Thompson would be a part of this rotation all year long. So I have no idea what's going to happen with him. But I like the idea of giving some of those young guys, like you mentioned, McGreevy and Matthews, an opportunity.
I think that's the way to go about it. And the nice thing about having Sonny Gray as a part of this rotation is now you don't have to worry about that specific spot, right? The injuries are something that you're always just going to have to worry about with him. And by the end of the season, he obviously was wearing down once again, but he finished the season really strong. So it wasn't a matter of him going out there and oh no, he blew up when we got to August and September. He can't handle the weather here or whatever. He was really good with everything that came his way by the end of the season. They just need to pair somebody with him, and I think it's too much to ask Quinn Matthews to become that guy immediately. I think the pressure that sometimes we place upon these Cardinals prospects is immense, and it's a team that's expected to win every season. So when you've got a guy that is asked to immediately come in, play a pivotal role for the roster, and win at the same time, I think that's a lot to place on some of these young players, and I think it can break some of these young players. So if they could go out this offseason and use some of the young talent that we've talked so much about, that they have a surplus of right now with their position player core, and acquire one of those starting pitchers that we're looking at, that to me is the direction that I would like to see them go. I don't have a name for you because I don't know who that guy is that's going to become available. Maybe it's somebody with the Seattle Mariners. Maybe one of those guys. We've been talking about him for 2 years now. At some point, Seattle has to look at the way that they've constructed their roster and say, hey, this isn't working. There is a breaking point that meets with your roster. And I don't know who's going to be making those calls there either, honestly, this offseason. With Dipoto, who knows if he's going to be back or not. But that would be the direction that I would want to go in, is use Herrera, Gorman, those types of guys as potential trade bait.
And by the way, in the big scheme of things, I agree with you about young pitchers and not putting the pressure on them. But Quinn Matthews pitched 4 years at Stanford. He turns 24 on October 4th. So he pitching in the old Pac-12, pitched in pressure situations, pitched in the College World Series, pitched a lot this year, gave the Cardinals a lot of innings. Now, do you start him as your does he start the second game of the season? No, you can start him on the fifth game of the season. So you tell everybody he's your fifth, but you hope he grows into that role as one of your best guys.
What if instead, though, Randy, you came into next season and said, we're not even expecting him or asking him to become that. Instead, we're going to have George Kirby, Brian Wu, or Bryce Miller, one of those three guys.
I can live with that.
That are immediately slotted into that role, and we know what we're going to get out of those guys, and we're anticipating them being our number 2 starter all year long. And hey, if we end up getting more than we expect out of Quinn Matthews, we've got this 3-headed monster at the front end of our rotation. Feel really good about that. Kyle Gibson now slots into his natural slot as a number 4 starter, which is probably what he is at this point in his career, and a good one at that. And then Palante is exactly what you need him to be as an innings eater at the back end of your rotation as a number 5. That's a good big league rotation. Now, you also have issues with your offense, and that's a look over here type of a situation.
But you can,
but at least you've solved your rotation problems.
Right. And if you do things right, you can make runs. You can't make pitching. And by the way, we talked earlier about being proactive versus reactive. I don't think that if you wanted one of those 3 starters from Seattle right now, that you could get them for and this is just my perception of the way things are right now, I don't think you could get him for Nolan Gorman. I think you could have gotten Dylan Cease for Gorman and another prospect.
Potentially. They ended up getting a decent haul for him based upon what evaluators said about that trade. But, yeah, I think Gorman was probably the starting point in any of those kinds of deals. And now you look at it, and I don't think he has the same kind of value today that he did this time last year. So you'd be selling low on him. But what if you went to Seattle, and I don't want to trade Ivan Herrera. I think Ivan Herrera might be like a Wilson Contreras style catcher long term. But if the team doesn't view him that way and they're not going to utilize him behind the plate, well, then get the best value possible and don't sell low on him. Don't wait until he loses all of his value. So trade him this offseason along with a potential Nolan Gorman type of a player, maybe another pitcher from your minor league system as well, and boom, now you've got a deal that could be enticing to a team like Seattle.
You would have to find the right match, absolutely. But the big guys in Seattle, they've got one of the best young catchers in the game in Cal Raleigh. Sure. So where you're coming from is right on. You just have to find the right match. And it might be a guy that, it might wind up being a guy that didn't have a good year. Cardinals might have to roll the dice on a guy like Luzardo or something like that and just hope that he gets healthy and turns into the pitcher that
or maybe the Cardinals say, you know what, Lars Nootbaar is available now.
Yeah.
Right. We haven't been able to talk about him the last couple of years, but things have changed. We now view Brendan Donovan as our left fielder. Maybe they bet on Gorman again or JC as their second baseman. Now Nootbaar becomes available, and that's the guy that the Mariners bet on as their outfielder.
I could see that. That's BK. I'm Randy, and that is look at the Cardinals' Sonny Gray. Coming up, the Rush Hour Reset on 101 ESPN. Hey, your deck might be unusable today on a rainy day in St. Louis. Maybe you're thinking about an outdoor project to enhance the value of your home and enhance the functionality of your home, and that is by going to Chesterfield Fence and Deck. They can turn your deck into a sunroom or a screen room, and maybe you'll be able to use that room every single day, even when it's raining. Put a big screen TV in there, get yourself a ceiling fan, and it'll look great, and you'll be able to use it 365 days a year. Go online to chesterfieldfence.com and see what they're able to provide for you. And then you can give them a call at 800-300-4054 or go to chesterfieldfence.com to set up an appointment. They'll come out to your house, provide you a free, no-obligation project design, and they'll build great additions to your home. They're A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau. Chesterfield Fence and Deck has won the BBB Torch Award winner, and if you tell them Randy sent you, you can get 20% off your next installed outdoor project with Chesterfield Fence and Deck. It's a great St. Louis company. They've been around for 56 years. You'll love them like I do. ChesterfieldFence.com, 800-300-4054. Chesterfield Fence and Deck. The sign you have the very best.
right up the gut. Rayola's down. Illinois pulls it off. A huge upset. Dylan Rosiak, the Mike linebacker, shoots through to make the stop.
9:06 in St. Louis. Time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Our rush hour reset good wins on Saturday for Mizzou and Friday for the Fighting Illini. Both teams undefeated. Mizzou falls to 11 and Illinois rises to number 19 with their victories. And both have a lot to look forward to. Missouri with a week off, which is, for me, pretty important as they head to Texas A&M.
So here's the question, Randy, because Missouri won this weekend, but they did so in dramatic fashion against a team that should have, in the eyes of many, including Vegas, been outmatched against the Missouri Tigers. They won in overtime, and they got lucky to be able to do so. They're 4-0 on the season. What is a reasonable level of concern for Missouri fans right now about this team? You're 4-0, which is all you can ask for. That's all you can do in the first 4 games of the season. But they have not looked like the team that we expected, especially in the offensive side of the ball, especially through the air. What is your level of concern about them long term?
My biggest concern is Brady Cook with the long ball. And I think the level of concern is reasonable because 2 years ago he had the same issues. We subsequently found out that he had a shoulder injury, but he was so good with the long ball last year, and we aren't seeing it this year. Running game is there. Special teams generally are there, although I think in a close game, the kicker would be considered more of a concern this year than he was last year, the thicker kicker last year. And defensively, they allow some big plays. I think they're going to need to buckle down on the big plays. We tend to forget, and it's the nature of college football, but you lose your best pass rusher in Robinson. You lose your best linebacker in Hopper. You lose 2 NFL corners. There's a lot that they have to replace. Plus, you lost your defensive coordinator. So this is a process for this defense. I don't think it's an event where it's as good as it was last year. And I think that's one of the reasons that this will be a big week, because they can diagnose what the issues are defensively and hopefully fix them.
I also think they're still pretty good on that side of the ball.
Yeah, they
had a couple of busts over the course of the weekend, and Diego Pavia is going to do that against a lot of teams that he goes up against.
Had a couple against BC, too.
Yeah, that's their biggest problem. They're not just giving up big plays. Randy, when they give up big plays, it's like a 60-yard touchdown that goes over their head and scores against them. So that has to get fixed. There's no other way around it. Like, the safeties have to stop looking into the backfield. You can't let that dude that's flying behind you get behind you. Take that away. They can't yet. They haven't done that so far. But if you take that away, you feel really good about where the defense is at. I think it all really comes back to the offense, and it comes back to Brady Cook. And I made this comparison talking with a buddy over the weekend. The way that Mizzou fans approach Brady Cook reminds me a lot of James Franklin. And the way that everybody just, for whatever reason, was out on James Franklin. They just didn't want to see him anymore. They were just done. And then Matty Mock took over for James Franklin, was not as good, was not as effective as James Franklin was as a quarterback, and people fell in love with him. He didn't put up these big-time statistics, and then you look at what he did in 2014. He was bad for most of the season, but they had a good defense, and that was enough to get them back to the SEC East division winner and the SEC championship game. I think Brady Cook is better than Matty Mock was. I think he can be similar to what James Franklin was, with less ground appeal for him than what James did. I think Brady Cook's a pretty solid quarterback, man. I think we just overestimate what it takes to be a good quarterback for a college football playoff caliber of team, because we haven't seen it at Mizzou yet.
And and I know it's a new year, and when we're 4 games into a new year now, but if you compare Brady Cook to the other top, like, Heisman Trophy candidate quarterbacks in the SEC, he was right there with those guys last year. He was with Beck and Dart and Ewers in terms of his numbers last year. So we know the ability is there.
I'm just not that worried about him. Like, scale of 1 to 10, where's my level of panic with this team right now? Like a 3? I think they're still really good. I think they probably finish 10-2, maybe 11-1, depending on what happens in that game against Alabama. Oklahoma did nothing over the weekend to make me concerned about that game. Same thing for Texas A&M, who struggled over the weekend against Bowling Green. And I know none of this is to speak of Missouri. Like, if Missouri can struggle against Vandy, they can struggle against any of these teams that I'm talking about. But I think Missouri's going to get a little bit better over the course of the season. I do not think their schedule is particularly daunting. I think it's still a really good team that's probably going to make the college football playoff. So I am not nearly as concerned as most fans are. I do, big picture-wise, Randy, do you think fans in 2024 like their teams less than they used to?
Yes, there's no doubt about it.
what is leading to that? Because I feel that with the Cardinals as well. Like I talk about individual players, and I think Cardinals fans are lower on many of them than I am as a more neutral observer. I watch Mizzou every weekend, and it feels like every weekend there's a crisis point among the fan base of like, I don't like this team, fire everybody, bench the core. What's happened?
Well, here, I think that we can answer this very quickly with what's going on right now. I think Illinois fans right now are thrilled with their 4-0 team, their 4-0 number 19 team. Mizzou is disappointed with their 4-0 number 11 team. It's all based on what your expectations are. And I think here in St. Louis, we expect our baseball team to be good all the time. We expect to be in the playoffs every year. And when they're not, there is no gray area. It's got to be either black or white. We got to either suck or be great. And I think that's where we have come as a sports fan society.
That's not a very fun way to watch sports.
No, but it literally is permeated.
I'm not saying he's wrong.
Every single sport you deal with it with Mizzou football and basketball. It's the exact same thing with the soccer teams dealt with it this year too, where every single game is a indictment of a player or a coach or the front office's entire career. They are bad at what they are doing, and I never want to see them involved with us ever again. And that's the Mizzou fans have the same thing. Brady Cook has a bad game, and it's fire him into the sun and transfer for a new quarterback right now. That's the reaction. It's if there's any set of expectations, if you slip up a little bit, the pitchforks are out, the guillotine is being built.
Brady Cook is 32nd in the country in yards passing so far this year. And I know some of that is against lesser competition, but Mizzou's not the only team that's playing lesser competition. He has basically the same numbers on the season as Dylan Gabriel, who was one of the top transfers in the country that went to Oregon. He's got a great supporting cast around him as well. I just think we've overestimated how bad Brady Cook has been so far this year. It has not looked pretty. I'm not trying to disagree with anybody, but he's a decent quarterback. And man, I guess I don't watch Mizzou the same way. I came into this season and I have those high expectations that other Missouri fans do. But did we forget what happened last year? DRINKWITZ made some super bad decisions in that game against Kansas State. His team bailed him out. He had the thicker kicker that made the 61-yarder, and then boom, the regular season goes off from there. But also there were some other games that were a little rocky. You remember that Kentucky game? Where they had to have the fake punt to be able to get them back into it, and until then they looked completely lifeless. The Florida game where they have to convert 4th and 17 to be able to win that one. Memphis where they looked just disinterested for most of the game here in St. Louis. Middle Tennessee where they won by a score. I look at that, and then I look at this team, and I don't see a whole lot of I see a lot of similarities.
Well, it's a question of perspective because it's just I think when you look at a full season, you that was good, you're going to focus on the positives. And if the season outlook is negative, you will highlight the negatives. And my point to that is we're getting texts today where people are like, Brady Cook looks terrible. He can't complete a pass further than 5 yards down the field. I see a quarterback who's unconfident in throwing the ball down the field. And yet, when the game was on the line, he rolls out and hits Luther Burden for a dart last week down the field just over the outstretched arms of the defender. And so, two things can be true. He can be struggling, but it doesn't have to be to the point where the guy's got the yips and can't complete a pass on the field. We don't have to, everything isn't bad just because there are some slip-ups. That's where the perspective thing comes
Randy,
into play.
you have proper context on these things, in my opinion. When did this happen? Is this a recent revelation? I understand that people, expectations bring on a different perspective on things, but it feels different now than it has been.
The first time I really remember something like this is when Kurt Warner got off to a bad start. He'd won the MVP and been to the Super Bowl in 2001. 2002, he gets off to, and the team gets off to a bad start. They're 0-2, and people were saying, bench him, get him out of town.
Okay, never mind.
And so this town, it's unbelievable. They couldn't wait to get Kurt Warner out of town. Okay. So he only started 7 more games after winning the MVP and taking the team to a Super Bowl. 7 more games for the franchise. So people got their way. I think it's, again, based upon people's unreasonable expectations to always be dominant. So,
and then when you're not.
Right. It's not dealing in reality.
Interesting.
So, BK, Matthew, Randy, coming up. Our buddy Chip Carey joins us as the Cardinals get ready for their final road trip of the season. Chip will be with us on the opening drive on 101 ESPN. today, so BK is in on the opening drive. Randy Carricker with you, and we head to the celebrity line. And our friend Chip Carey getting ready for the Cardinals' final road trip of 2024. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you, Randy?
Everything's great, thanks. First of all, it was good to see you the other night, and you have just turned that broadcast booth, win or lose, you've turned that broadcast booth into a fun place to go, man.
Well, yeah, disco lights and fog machines tend to make everybody's mood a little better. We just unfortunately didn't turn the fog machine on after wins at home enough. But no, we have a great time. We've got a great crew. And as I said on the air yesterday, the last game of a season, good, bad, or otherwise, at home is a bittersweet day, right? You're ready to see where the team's going to go in the off season, but you have to say goodbye to people that are really, really dear friends and family, and that's our fantastic crew in that booth. So I'm really happy that they've allowed us our crazy, silly indulgences, but they seem to enjoy playing along too.
And Chip, one of the things about this home season is that the Cardinals, when they've been World Series teams, they have been dominant at home. Not that they were terrible at home, but they were far from dominant at home, and I think that's one of the things that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I agree. It's got to be a home field advantage. And, they had a winning record at home. That's good. It's a nice place to build upon as we look forward to seasons ahead. But, yeah, as an opposing broadcaster, you hated coming there. You'd have a packed house. You had a real good team. You knew you were in a fight offensively, defensively, in the battle of the bullpens. And, look, the Cardinals have to get back to that. I think the last 2 years have proven that they have strayed from that path. And I'm pretty confident that they feel that they know how to do that, to how to get back on the right road. And I would imagine here in the next 7 to 10 days, we'll see some changes that point in that direction.
Chip, over the weekend, Ollie Marmol was asked about how he felt going towards the end of last season versus how he feels right now. And he said, not even close. He feels so much better about the direction that the organization is heading in today than he did at this point last year. As you've watched all of these games, you've either been a part of the call or you've seen them. How do you feel this year at the end of the season compared to where you did at this point last year?
Well, results-wise, BK, obviously it's a lot better. They lost 91 games. That's not going to happen this year. You've seen the emergence of young homegrown players in the lineup pretty consistently. In fact, a couple of days ago, maybe a week and a half ago, 8 of the 10 guys that swung the bat in the game were all homegrown Cardinals prospects and Cardinals players. That's how you do it. We're seeing some improvement and growth from pitching. Guys like McGreevy who come up, and he's going to pitch tomorrow night. The improvement of Andre Palante, those are homegrown guys. Look, when the Cardinals were really at their best, and again, I'm speaking as an outsider here, you came to town and you saw all their pitching was homegrown. All their starters came from other places, or they were acquired very early in their minor league careers, a la Adam Wainwright, and they became stars in the Cardinals farm system and then got to the major leagues. That's the pathway forward. That's what's going to have to happen. And I think we're seeing some pieces of that beginning to show. Look, we don't know what Quinn Matthews is going to do, but he struck out 200 guys in the minor leagues. Rick Ankiel, the last guy to do that. McGreevy, I just mentioned. Graceffo, number 1 picks. Tink Hence, Takor Roby, Sem Robersa. There are others that they have acquired who have a chance to get up here. The pitching pipeline, which used to gush with talent, has slowed to a trickle. And if the Cardinals want to get back to where they are, they have to homegrown the most expensive and most difficult commodity to acquire in the major leagues, and that's pitching of any kind. And I'm confident they can do it.
Chip, in this month, Jordan Walker has an .820 OPS. He's hit 5 homers and 14 RBIs. What have your impressions been of Walker? Do you? I guess the question is, from what you've observed, and you've seen a lot of players turn the corner, do you think he has, or do you think he's still headed towards that corner?
I still think he's headed towards it. I think if you look at what he's done, honestly, he's still striking out way too much. He's hitting mistakes. He's not driving the ball consistently like we saw in flashes last year. Look, I think Jordan's a tremendously talented kid, and I think that his numbers and the results are going to show that he's got some improvements and adjustments to make, as all young players do. He's 22. He's supposed to struggle. It's not easy. Hitting a baseball is hard. Hitting a baseball consistently is hard. And I think we saw evidence of that yesterday. Jordan is a ground ball guy. He's on the ground too much, pulling the ball to the left side and rolling over. He's going to hit a mistake up and inside on the inner half of the plate. He's going to kill that. He's going to hit a hanging breaking ball. All big leaguers are going to do that. It's what he does with those other hittable pitches where he can drive the ball to gaps, drive the ball in the air and hit it hard someplace, and more importantly, have an approach that's going to determine how quickly he can not only get to that corner, Randy, but turn it next year.
Chip Carey is our guest here on 101 ESPN. Chip, I'm going to give you a bit of a dealer's choice here because Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, and Ivan Herrera all have an OPS over 900 so far in the month of September. Out of those three guys, which one do you find most interesting in what they've been able to do so far this month?
Boy, that's like asking which one is your favorite kid.
Sure.
Thanks a lot, big kid. That's terrific. I love these. Donovan leads the team in hits. He's very versatile. He can play multiple positions. I think that gives him an edge over the other two guys because obviously he's a Gold Glove player defensively, both in left field and second base. I think he's made 2 errors all year. I mean, that's incredible as much as he has played. His versatility is a big, big help to this team, but he's kind of blocked by Nolan Arenado at third base, which is somewhat problematic. Burleson with his power, with his bat-to-ball skills, his line drive rate, he's a guy that sprays the ball all over the place. He hits the ball hard, but he's not a plus defender like Donovan is. And as far as Herrera goes, I think he's kind of a hybrid player, right? He plays a tough defensive position. He doesn't control the running game all that well. He's got to work on his throws to second base, but he, too, is another guy that can swing the bat and really do damage. So I put him in that order, I think. Donovan 1, Burleson 2, Herrera 3, but all three very close, and the edge goes to what Brennan can do defensively.
Chip Carey is a great member of the St. Louis community, and one of the things you got involved with this year was that initiative to feed the hungry, and even though the home season has ended, that initiative has not ended, has it?
No, it's not. It'll continue going on. Cardinals.com, Feed the Future. We've raised $22,000 in a short period of time thanks to the generosity of so many great fans in Cardinal Nation. You can go online and donate there, not just with your dollars, but with your time. The Community Food Bank here in St. Louis does a great job of helping kids in our area battle food insecurity. It's a big problem, especially during the summer months, which is why we'd really like to sort of jumpstart this around the beginning of the new year. We've got some other things that are maybe in the thought process file of how we can improve visibility and get more people involved, and hopefully we'll have some of those plans firmed up. But I'm grateful for everybody's support. It was a lot of fun, and we learned a lot, and hopefully we helped a lot too.
And again, that website is cardinals.com/feed the future. So you're going to wind up in Colorado and then wind up in San Francisco. That's not a bad way to end the season.
Yeah, not a bad way to end the season. I wish we had something more to play for other than pride, but I think all his comments after the game against Cleveland were really on point. This team has played hard all year. They haven't always played well, but they've played hard. They've represented the Birds on the bat very well in that regard. Now we just got to figure out which path and which direction we go after the season to jumpstart this thing. I think the Cardinals are in a much better place than they were at the end of last year. The future is not as bleak as some would prognosticate, but clearly there's some work to be done and some really hard decisions are going to have to be made, and that's the challenge of professional sports, right? Nothing's supposed to ever be easy, and I think all of us are excited to see about what's happening in the future and where that's going to take us in the years to come.
Chip, we're so thankful that you joined us every Monday morning, man. The seasons just fly by, and it's been so much fun. You're a great friend and a great guy to have on the show, and we thank you very, very much.
Well, a million kindnesses have been extended to me by you, Randy, and BK, and I appreciate that. Thanks to all the fans who've tuned into our silliness on the broadcasts. And let's go out with a bang here on the road and get ready for spring training 2025. I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Chip. We'll talk to you soon. See you later.
See you soon. Take care, guys.
Take care. Chip Carey, the TV voice of the Cardinals, with us on 101 ESPN.
Randy, I asked about Brendan Donovan. I'm curious your thoughts on this. I brought this up the other day on the show, and both T-Bone and Alex said, absolutely not. That's the most ridiculous thing you could possibly do. Would you consider extending Brendan Donovan this offseason? I don't think it's going to break the bank or anything.
Brendan
but if
Donovan's
he said
he's their best
5 years, $50 million bucks.
Yep. He's their best all-around player. Yeah,
I agree.
He plays defense. He gets on base. He hits. He slugs. He doesn't hit for home runs, but he hits a lot of doubles. He's immensely important within that clubhouse. I think all around, if you look at everything, and Mason Wynn is right there. But those two are, I think, the most important aspects to the Cardinals' future. And absolutely, I would give Brendan Donovan a contract extension.
I thought you were going to say like 4 for 45, and so 5 for 50. I mean, I'm just saying,
right,
like that's as soon as you said it, I go 4 for 45. So if I'm running to the bank if I'm the Cardinals with that signature and that contract, 5 for 50 in a heartbeat for Brendan Donovan.
Because he's the kind of guy that's not going to outprice you in arbitration. It's not going to be unreasonable. Like, this is not the kind of move that you do because, like the Jackson Chourio contract, the reason that the Brewers do that is to get ahead of the potential of him being a $300 million man and them not being able to pay him once he's passed the ARB process. That's not what you're doing with Donovan. What you're doing with Donovan is rewarding a really good player for essentially good performance. Like, hey, first 3 years of your major league career, you're an above-average hitter all 3 seasons. We've asked you to play 3 different positions, and you've done all of it capably. And, oh, by the way, you became one of the biggest leaders inside of the clubhouse.
Big time. That's huge.
You do all of those things, yeah, let's reward you. And as the club, you now have cost certainty over the next 3 years instead of playing the arbitration roulette, where it could go from $3-4 million next year to $8 million a year after that, and then maybe 15 in year 3, and then he's hitting free agency now when he's making $10-15 million a year on an extension there. I just get it done. You don't have to worry about it. If down the road you decided, you know what, it's best for us as an organization, J.J. Weatherholt becomes a superstar, Chase Davis and Jordan Walker are holding down the corner, something like that, cool. Now you've got a tradable contract as well if you needed to go in that direction.
I'm not saying it factored into it, but it'd be nice if maybe you didn't have to worry about pissing off your young players through arbitration.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm not saying it affected Tyler. I'm not saying it affected the guys who
just
have
avoid
left.
it entirely.
But let's just avoid it and take out the variable potential.
Right. If you tell me if the Cardinals go to spring training next year and you tell me, okay, for the next 4 years, you're going to have Wynn at shortstop leading off and Donovan at second base hitting second, and that's our plan for the next 4 years, and we've got those guys locked in, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, it's at least a starting point. And I think a lot of the time we get so caught up in, hey, who are the stars? Who are the stars? Who are the stars? Fair questions. Like, those questions need to be answered. It can't just be that. You also have to have the supporting talent. Otherwise, you become like the previous iteration of the San Diego Padres, where it's just stars and then there's no connective tissue within the organization. The Cardinals have a lot of that stuff. The stuff that you need to be a winning organization, they've got that. They're missing the superstars. Keep that good stuff here without having the expense of it at the great stuff.
There's a reason that the Padres and the Mets shed salary, yet are better teams this year. And that's it. The connective tissue. It's a great term for it. They're better units than they were before.
Absolutely.
That's BK. I'm Randy. Coming up, NFL highlights and lowlights from Week 3. Next on 101 ESPN.
Week 3 of the NFL season is not over yet. We have a doubleheader tonight in Monday Night Football, which is a perfect time for some daily fantasy with our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by competing on Underdog, and there's all the different ways to play. You can go with live entries. You can put your entries in a week ahead when it comes to the NFL games, or you can even play their Streaks games. That's the best way to get your biggest winnings is the Streaks games. Right now, Mike's Streak game died at about 4. It's the farthest I've gotten so far, but I'm going to keep on plugging with my Streaks game. And tonight, obviously, Again, 2 Monday Night Football games. It's a perfect night to put in some daily fantasy entries on Underdog Fantasy. I'm going to start an entry right now for these 2 games. We're going to go with higher than 21.5 receiving yards for Travis Etienne Jr. We're going to go lower than 265.5 passing yards for Joe Burrow, and I'm going to go higher than 3.5 receptions for Khalil Shakir of the Bills on that one. So you can start off with that entry, and you can change it however you want. You can take ones off. You can add it, and as you add it, you're just going to raise your chances of winning more. That's making picks on Underdog, and it's straightforward, and it's signing up is so easy. You just head over to Underdog, simply use mobile app or to UnderdogFantasy.com. You sign up with the promo code ROCC. Underdog is going to give you a free pick to use on your first cash champion entry. You can just add that into the entry we're building right now, and you can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ROCC to claim your new customer special of a free pick'em and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus in present state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Consumers that play call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncgambling.org. This is Rocky O with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals are eliminated from playoff contention over the weekend. They'll have a day off today before they start their second of 2 final series to close out the 2024 season. Over the weekend, St. Louis City SC got a big victory, their first away victory of the season. They win over San Jose Earthquakes 2-1. They also were eliminated from playoff contention despite the victory. And in college football over the weekend, big wins for the Illini and the Tigers. The Illini with a 31-24 overtime victory over the, at the time, ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers, while the Missouri Tigers jipped by the skin of their teeth and a missed field goal from the Vanderbilt Commodores, and they win that one 30-27. After those results, the Illini have moved up in the top 25 rankings. The Tigers have moved down. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Highlights and lowlights from week 3 in the NFL. And BK, I like good coaching. I like logical people. So John Harbaugh noticed that the Dallas Cowboys can't stop the run. He also noticed that he now has Derrick Henry, and he noticed that his team needed to maul the opposition. They've got 3 new, including 2 rookie offensive linemen on the Ravens. So what did the Ravens do? They decided to run the ball. Lamar Jackson only threw it 15 times. He was 12 of 15 for 182. They ran it 45 times, and Derrick Henry himself 25 for 151 and a couple of scores in that Ravens victory over the Cowboys. Sometimes football coaches like to make it more difficult than it really is. If the other team can't stop what you do best, you just keep doing what you do best and let them stop it. Let them try to stop it.
I thought it was a good coaching performance for the first 3.5 quarters, and then somehow they tried to lose the game. They tried really, really hard at the end to be able to give that one away to the Cowboys. Cowboys ended up scoring 21 points in the final 6 minutes of the game, which was wild to witness. But John Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the NFL. It's why I wasn't panicking after they started the season the way that they did. That team's going to be fine.
Yeah, they are.
It was a weird start to the season, and they do have some stuff to get figured out at the end of these games to be able to put them away, but they're going to be fine.
One of the things that is new in the rules in the NFL is that if you're going to try an onside kick, you have to tell the other team.
Correct.
So the Ravens knew an onside kick was coming and still couldn't cover it. That was a problem.
Harbaugh's a special teams guy.
Yeah, right.
That's the weirdest thing is he got his start as a special teams coordinator. Really weird finish to that game, to put it mildly. Speaking of good coaching, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0. Let me repeat this one more time. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who most of us looked at coming into this season and said, man, that's a team with a terrible quarterback situation. They're 3-0 to start out the year, and they just got a really nice victory at home, 20-10 against the LA Chargers. Randy, we talk about this during the hockey season a lot. What's the Blues' identity, right? Mm-hmm. Are they a rush team? Are they a defensive-oriented team? Are they a team that just leans on their goalie to find out what's going to happen? You know who has an identity and has stuck with that identity for 20 years? The Pittsburgh Steelers. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Doesn't matter who the running back is. Doesn't matter who the faces are on the defensive side of the ball. They know exactly who they are. And they've done a really good job of incorporating Justin Fields into that identity. That's their starter, man. Just run with this. Let's see what it looks like the rest of the year. Russell Wilson, hey, take your time with the calf. Mm-hmm. And when you get back, you're our backup.
Yeah, right. Russell Wilson is not going to start for them next year. Justin Fields has a chance to and appears to have bought in. Remember in Seattle what happened? Pete Carroll wanted to run the ball, and Russell Wilson got the let Russ cook thing going. And if there is a guy that could upend the chemistry and the identity, as you say, in Pittsburgh, it would be a guy like Wilson. So, yeah, let the young guy run the show. Yesterday, he had his first turnover, and it was a tip and a tipped interception. Justin Fields is just fine for that team.
He adds an element in the running game with what he's able to do on the ground. It feels like he has now figured out, okay, this is who I am as a quarterback, and it feels like the Steelers probably went to him and said, hey, just don't lose us these games. Just don't turn the ball over. Be competent. And if you can do that, we can be a really good football team. We've got a great defense on the other side. Every drive for the Steelers that ends in a kick, whether that's a punt or a field goal or an extra point, that's a good drive in their mind, and he's been able to do that so far this year.
Great job by Mike Tomlin. It's not what the NFL is now, but they're finding a way to do it.
It might be what the NFL's trending more towards because of the cover, too.
No doubt. My low light is from the San Francisco 49ers, who lost at the end to the LA Rams. Special teams, though. The Niners allowed a fake punt conversion. They run for 7 on a 4th and 6. They miss a 55-yard field goal. And then at the end of the game, they allow a 38-yard punt return that sets up the Rams' winning field goal. This is not typical of San Francisco. All day long, people have been talking about, well, they didn't have Christian McCaffrey. Well, they didn't have Deebo Samuel. Well, they didn't have George Kittle. They were there at the end, and it's the little things all the time. We just talked about the Steelers. It's the little things that win and lose football games for you. And it was attention to detail on the special teams for San Francisco that lost them that game to the Rams.
It was a miserable performance down the stretch, and that is not a Rams team you should be losing to right now. The Rams coming into this season, I thought were going to be a pretty interesting team. 10 wins, somewhere around there. Stafford could have a good season, and Stafford had a great game last night, dude. I really feel bad for him. I know nobody wants to hear it about the Rams. You don't want to hear my sympathy, but I feel bad for Matt Stafford because this is maybe the last potentially great season of his career. He doesn't have many of these left. He's getting up there in age, and he's getting just rocked back there. And he's rifling it into Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson. Like, what are we doing with these receivers for him? Colby Parkinson's dropping the ball all over the place, and they still find a way to come out with a win. So an impressive victory for the Rams. But, yeah, that is a rough performance by the San Francisco 49ers. I haven't looked at their schedule. It opens up a little bit. You got the Pats next week. You should be able to win that one, but I would have thought the same thing about the Rams.
I'm a little confused about the Brock Purdy thing because, like, I don't want to overreact because everyone's been waiting for him to for the shine to come off because of who he is. But this was the year where it was supposed to be Brock Purdy's going to prove to everyone this year that no, he's not just a 7th rounder who's doing good in an offense. He's a real legit NFL quarterback. And I'm not saying he's not, but it's just there hasn't been any jump in his game this year. And in fact, I think he's missed a lot of potential shots that he would have hit last year. And I'm just kind of wondering, is this just a lull for a regular guy, or is this? Are we seeing something here with Brock Purdy where that next level isn't there?
22 of 30, 3 touchdown passes to Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, I know.
3 touchdowns, no picks.
I know.
I think every team in the league would take that every week.
I think Purdy's been fine. I don't think he's been their biggest issue. I think some of what you're talking about there without seeing that next step.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Is that, I don't think there is a next step. I think this is who he is. Sure. He's fine. He's like the 16th best quarterback in the league. Yeah. He's mobile Jared Goff. Like, there's a bunch of these guys that you can win with, but you're not necessarily going to win because of. And he has Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and a really good offensive line and one of the best play callers in the NFL calling his play. So when you have all of that going for you, you look pretty darn good as the 16th best quarterback in the league, just as Jared Goff does right now with the Detroit Lions, where he's got great weapons around him.
Yeah, what's he do? He doesn't turn the ball over. He gets the ball into the hands of his stars.
That's all you want.
Yep.
You know who doesn't do that? Deshaun Watson, who is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now. And I'm not kidding. Literally the worst quarterback in the league. In fact, there's this nerdy number that the nerds have put out there, Randy. It's called EPA, estimated points added or expected points added per dropback. It's basically how good were you? That's ultimately what it breaks down as. Deshaun Watson's EPA per dropback in the first 3 weeks of the season are the worst for any Browns quarterback to start a season since 2000. Now think about the quarterbacks that have started for the Browns in the last 24 years. And now think to yourself,
Wynn, Josh McCown.
The worst of them, the literal worst of them is Deshaun Watson. And in fact, he has 2 of the 3 worst seasons to start out a year among Browns quarterbacks in the last 24 years. He was 21st on this list back in last season, and he's 23rd out of 23 so far this year.
Do you know number 22? Because I can't imagine somebody could be worse than Johnny Manziel.
It is somehow Brady Quinn.
Okay.
Baker Mayfield in 2019 is in the bottom 5. Derek Anderson was at 19. Brandon Weeden had one of these seasons. Deshaun Kaiser is 15th on this list.
And way ahead of Deshaun Watson.
Well ahead of Deshaun Watson. He is right now the worst quarterback in the NFL. I don't know what the Browns do because they can't cut him.
No, they're stuck.
It's like $150 million next year towards the cap if they were to cut him. It's cheaper to just keep him for the next 3 seasons.
We reap what we sow, Cleveland.
Whew.
Sorry, factory of sadness. It is.
They
what
lost
it is.
to the Giants, dude. He got sacked 8 times.
Brutal. Just brutal.
And the Giants were without their best defensive end yesterday as well.
That's amazing. Those are highlights and lowlights from week 3 in the National Football League. Coming up, we're going to head down the stretch with rock and roll here on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Guardians go down in series finale. I'm Bradford Bruns with your Redbird report. Andre Palante had little margin for error yesterday as St. Louis wrapped up its 3-game set versus visiting Cleveland. Once again, though, number 53 embraced the assignment. 7 frames of one-hit ball. STL snags that 2-1 victory rubber match style. Lars Nootbaar scored from second base on a 7th-inning wild pitch by Andrew Walters, which allowed Ollie Marmol's high-leverage tandem to shine. Andrew Kittredge and Ryan Helsley collected those final 6 outs. Tomorrow's Cardinals-Rockies opener will feature Michael McGreevy. He was perfect during last week's relief appearance against Pittsburgh.
The Redbird Report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Guys, how you feeling this morning? If you are fatigued, if you're a little bit anxious, and you just don't feel the way you did when you were younger, I need you to visit Mentality. Go to lowtusa.com and find out what Mentality can do for you. Now, here's the essence of what they do. They realize at Mentality that after you pass your 30th birthday, your testosterone level is going to drop. And with that, your energy level is going to drop. And you're going to have that fatigue and be tired, and you're going to be moody and irritable. It doesn't have to be that way. Go to lowtusa.com and set up an appointment at one of the great Mentality locations, either Chesterfield or South County. And at Mentality, they're going to test your testosterone level, and when it's low, and inevitably it will be, they've got an FDA-approved testosterone supplemental treatment that will get you back to where you want to be so that you can feel great and have that power and stamina to work through a workout or a run or whatever physical endeavor you're involved in. And they're going to work with your insurance company to make sure that your out-of-pocket expenses are as low as possible. Get to Mentality now. Get started by going to lowtusa.com.